What's going on, Odds Squad? It's the Q from Odds HQ. It's us, the boys. It is the last show of the final weigh-in for 2020. And as you can tell, we're rearing, ripping, and ready to go. It's UFC Vegas 17. Let me throw it to the dudes before we jump into this. Guru, what's up?
Yeah, man. Like you said, it's the last show of the year. So definitely want to give a big shout out to everyone that's joining us today and everyone that's joined us, all these Fridays that we've been doing this, man, because we definitely got a pretty good audience. We got a lot of people that show up every time. So really appreciate that. And I mean, this card, we lost a couple fights, but no big fights. So it wasn't like these other weeks where we lost some, fights that a lot of people wanted to see. The card's still pretty good. So it's a good card to end the year too.
Definitely. MMA LOTN in the building. Let them know.
What's going on, peeps? Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Early New Year's, all that stuff. I'm getting quite festive over here. My wife just finished off her last day of work before the Christmas holidays. I still got a couple days next week, but I'm getting festive nice and early. Got the eggnog popping, got everything going. So yeah, I can't wait for this whole Christmas festivities to really kick off. And I'm starting it off early. So I hope I'm not showing you up too much over here, but I really enjoying it. And this card's great too. UFC Vegas 17, a lot of great fights. I'm really looking forward to Wonder Boy and obviously Jose Aldo to get in there too. But yeah, I'm super stoked for this card and happy to break it down with you guys once again for the last time this year. Let's give them a good show to wrap this thing up.
Absolutely. I love it. And Cody Saftic, what's going on, my man?
What's up? The UFC's last card of the year, obviously, and they're giving us a little Christmas present, I think. They're not making us pay for one of these pay-per-views like we got last week. We're getting a nice, fun offering. And they knew it was probably going to go to shit. So what they do, they put 15 fights on. We're currently sitting at 12. Knock on wood, because like Guru said, we've got a lot of the ones that everyone's really interested in still intact. Let's hope we can get through it. But happy to be chatting with the gang one more time in 2020.
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. We don't got any time to waste. We got Carlton Minus going up against Christos Giagos. Guru, can you get us going?
Yeah, another one this one was a late switch up. I mean, I think Giagos has like 2 days notice. So definitely have to put that into account. They both weighed in, I think, at 160. So you got a little bit of break on the weight cut. But it was the first time Minus was cutting down to 155 too. So he probably didn't mind, And he looks a lot bigger at the weigh-ins, which is something that, I was kind of surprised by. But I do feel like, Giagos is probably the better fighter, especially early on. He's going to be more explosive, probably be able to close the distance, land his big shots, probably hit a few takedowns. But, I don't trust him at minus 300 or whatever he is, because when you watch his fights with the full camp, he does tend to get tired. He'll gas out in those fights. So 2 days notice, I could see Minus maybe, pulling away a second and third round, or even, maybe getting like a 10-8 in the third round and the fight could be a draw or something crazy like that, because I'm just, not trusting Giagos at that number. But, I think Minus has good boxing. He can move around, but I feel like Giagos will probably be more dynamic on the feet, land the bigger shots, and maybe hit a few takedowns, maybe squeak out the win. So I'll pick Giagos by decision, but yeah, I think it's going to go to decision. I see it over 2.5 rounds is like minus 110, which I think it's probably going to go to decision. I don't think either guy's a great finisher. So definitely I'm going to go with Giagos, but not really a super confident pick.
Right on. Lock of the night. Hit us with your take.
Yeah, super short notice for Giagos, like Guru was touching on. For some reason, though, I feel like this is a little bit harder of a fight for Minus. Obviously, the only things he really has going for him here is the fact that Giagos is taking this fight on super short notice. And, this is the first time he's fighting in close to a year. The last time we saw him was against Drakkar Close, where he lost a decision there. But I feel like he's able to put together the MMA game a lot better and more efficiently than Rick Glenn was going to be able to. So, the takedowns are going to be there for Giagos. The striking is going to be there. My only real question mark is his third round cardio. That always seems to be a bit of an issue for him. So that's where I'm kind of putting it on pause in terms of being confident in parlaying Christos Giagos at this high ass number that he's currently at. However, I still think he gets it done. Minus doesn't really show much that leads me to believe that he's going to go out there and get a third round finish. His game plan is pretty simple. He likes to strike, likes to throw a jab here and there, and kind of just keep his opponent at distance, but he doesn't really do a good job of putting much power behind those punches to really keep these guys intimidated and staying on the outside. So I think that Giagos is going to have a lot of success in terms of closing the distance, getting this fight to the ground, and kind of just wearing him out from there. And just scrolling through his IG, looks like he's been in shape. It's not like he's just been sitting around on the couch and just took this fight because he's like, all right, whatever, I'm going to cut a shit ton of weight. I'll make weight. And even if I lose the fight, I'm getting a bit of a paycheck, maybe a little bit of a Christmas bonus here, but he's been putting in the work, what it looks like. So yeah, I still like Dhiego here. I think he wins by decision. I think that's the best prop as well as what me and Cody were talking about last night. But at minus 300, now that we have odds, I'm probably gonna pass on Dhiego here.
Understandable. Cody Saftic, let him know.
Yeah, I mean, we actually speculated last night that it would probably open up around 240 and then get steamed to around that 300 range. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. Is it dangerous? Yeah, it's dangerous because Diagos is coming on 2 days' notice. He hasn't fought in 16 months. He's known to gas out, like Guru was saying, and when he does have full camps. So there's a lot of question marks with him. But his style, that power wrestling grinding style, I mean, it's perfect for Carlton Minus. Carlton Minus likes to feint a lot, use the jab, stay on his feet. I think he should be able to get this fight to the ground when Diagos wants. The question is, if he's not able to finish Minus, does he get super tired in that third round? And yeah, he normally does. So I like Diagos. I like the Diagos by decision prop, like everyone's saying. But the fight to start round 3 is minus 145, right? Infinitely better price. If Diagos goes out there and has his way with his wrestling, gets the takedown, secures position, maybe doesn't overexert himself because he knows he's taken on such short notice, it probably gets 2 rounds in. With Carlton Minus, he's been submitted the one time by Rick Story, high-level guy. That was his first pro losses 2 years ago. He's been working a lot since then. So maybe Diagos doesn't take him out early with the submission. Flip side to that, Guru's right. Maybe Diagos tires out. Maybe Minus starts to take over the fight later in that second round. If he's able to secure the second round, it's 1-1 going into the third. We're in trouble if we're Diagos bankers. But we've got that fight to start round 3, right? So minus 145. If it goes to decision, we're good there. If it's a third round finish and we lose it because Diagos is too tired, we're fine. Minus just really needs to do what he did the Semmelsberger fight. Go through the motions and drop a decision. So I like Diagos 3-1. Obviously, none of us are fully on board with that. But Diagos, you would chase it maybe with Diagos by decision. And then I prefer that fight to start round 3. So over 2 rounds, minus 145.
Go ahead, Locke.
I actually found it interesting that they dropped the totals at 1.5 and not 2.5 here. So you're getting over 1.5 at minus 200, which I still think is a solid spot considering both these guys aren't really finishers. And we do expect Dhiegos to probably go in there and just grapple fuck this guy. So to get 7.5 minutes of that, I'm surprised they even put out 1.5. So I think that's a solid spot as well.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm going to end up taking Dhiegos in this one. A little bit sketchy, I'm a little turned off on the short notice. Honestly, the size discrepancy we saw at the weigh-ins today, pretty significant. Like Guru talked about, Minus coming down from 170, so he's a big guy. This fight is at catch weight. Maybe the cut wasn't so drastic for Dhiegos, saving him that last 5 pounds of dehydration. But I'm going to take Dhiegos. But again, we talked about it. The number's just not great. I'm not too comfortable with it. Do I end up doing something with it? Possibly. But, man, I would love to see some money come in on Minus. I just don't see the value really at that point, considering the full spectrum of the fight. A little risky for Dhiegos, but I think he gets it done. So here we go. Fight we've already talked about, boys. And we got Jimmy the Brick Flick going up against Cody Durden. Locke, you want to get us going here?
Yeah, I think people are almost tired of hearing about this matchup at this point in time. I know I am. Talking about it like 6 different times. It's absolutely insane. But I still feel the exact same as I did the first time, as I did the second time, and as I do now. I still think Jimmy Flick's going to go out there. He's going to get a submission victory. Cody Durden doesn't. He's decent on the feet. He's obviously better than Jimmy Flick on the feet. Let's get that straight first. But he's no real like technician on the feet. He's like one of those like wrestler strikers that just like kind of like throwing that blitzing hook, moving forward, kind of closing the gap really quickly and throwing those power shots. Whereas Jimmy Flick, he just wants to get this fight to the ground. And I think for Durden to be successful, he's probably going to need to take this fight to the ground. And that's probably Jimmy Flick's world, right? And now is also where the cardio question marks come up for Cody Durden. And given that this is a hard weight cut down to 125. Now he's had to do it twice in 2 weeks. How much is it really going to take an effect on him? It doesn't really change much for me here with Jimmy Flick. I still think he goes out there, he gets the sub, but not the most confident in it either. If I'm not mistaken, also Jimmy Flick around this time, the last time they were supposed to fight was minus 160. Now he's minus 145. Even his sub prop went up from plus 110 to plus 140. So there is a little bit of Cody Durden love coming in now. We're getting slightly better value on Flick. So if you were on Flick last time, you have even more reasons to be on him now. Personally, I'm not taking the shot on him, but I do think he pulls it off, and I think he gets the submission victory.
Nice. I like it. Cody, how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've talked about it many times over. So what new information can we add to it? Obviously, the storyline is Durden coming down to 125. He has apparently made it one time in the past against Jared Scoggins, but by his own account, not making 126, hasn't fought in flyweight for a long time. It was going to be a tough weight cut. Makes that weight cut, has the eye infection, pink eye. Fight gets rebooked 2 weeks later, has to make the weight again. You got to watch the scales. That's why we do the show on Friday nights. You got to see these guys on the scale. So does he get on the scale? Does he make weight? Absolutely. Was he wearing sunglasses? Was that cheeky at first? But, it was a joke, right? Because as soon as he got in the face-off, he pulls the sunglasses off and kind of has a smile with them like, haha, there you go. You can see my eyes. I'm all good. Let's get this fight. But then when they shake hands afterwards, Durden looks exhausted. He looks drained. He almost looks like hunched over, and he doesn't look in great shape. Flick just looks himself. And I honestly think that this is a fight that if it goes into those later rounds, Flick should have a slight cardio advantage. His ability to chain submission attempts together over and over should help. And again, I know Guru actually mentioned this the last time we broke down this fight, 2 weeks ago, is that you go back to that Ryan Hollis fight. Now, Ryan Hollis has a weird body composition for Bantamweight. He's very tall, lanky, rangy. But that fight's just 2 years ago, and Durden struggles mightily in grappling exchanges with him. A 12-13 Louisiana, Texas regional scene type fighter. How do you go from that to now taking on someone in Flick who's like got high level BJJ, and that's what he wants to do? 13 of 15 wins by submission, no wins by knockout. He's got a decent little calf kick. He's got some wild loopy hooks that we've seen in his last fight against Nate Smith. He's more willing to engage with the striking, but he realizes he's been knocked out 4 times in 5 pro losses, and so he wants to get this fight to the ground. I thought his wrestling looked better his last fight. I thought his cardio looked better his last fight, and him fighting so frequently in 2020 and just keeping it one extended camp. He's in a groove, so to speak. So with Durden, you can write the excuse that his last fight is short notice, so that's why he gasses after 1 round, right? He backpacks Chris Gutierrez for 1 round, and then 2 and 3 he looks exhausted, fails on all his takedown attempts, doesn't look himself, right? In this fight, he's got a full camp, so that shouldn't happen. In fact, extended camp, right? But there's an adrenaline dump after you prepare, your body peaks, you're getting ready for fight night, and all of a sudden, whoops, fight's not happening. Flick wouldn't have peaked because he just fought 2 weeks before, and before that, he fought like 3 weeks before that. So he's, like I'm saying, one continuous camp. So I honestly think that Durden probably goes out and does give a good account of himself in the first round. But as he starts to fatigue in 2 and 3, and I do believe the bad weight cut, not the short camp, will be the reason he fatigues this time around, Flick should be able to capitalize. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Flick. Obviously, that submission props live. At 110, it was like, But now that money's coming in that way, it's like it makes more reasonable sense. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Flick to get the win here.
Good stuff, Cody. Guru, how do you see it?
Yeah, I'm still going to stick with Cody Durden, but I do agree with what they're saying. I mean, the 2 weight cuts really does kind of, throw more of a wrench into it. But I just still feel like if Durden fights smart, he has a lot of intangibles and he's better on the feet. I think he's more athletic. I think he definitely moves a lot better. He's the faster guy of the two. And I could see him using that low calf kick because, he was landing that low calf kick on Gutierrez, who's known to be one of the best kickers in the division. So I feel like he'll definitely throw it against Flick, and maybe he could kind of start to limit Flick's movement and make it harder for him to take him down. So if he does gas, it could kind of even itself out. But I just feel like Durden is going to maybe be able to keep it on the feet and just find that chin and knock him out. That's what I see happening. I could see Flick getting it to the ground and submitting him. I do feel like if he gets it to the ground at any point, Durden's going to be definitely in trouble. I don't think that he's really on the level that Flick is on the ground, but I'm going to go with Durden still by knockout.
There you go. Yeah, so, I was on Flick 2 weeks ago. I'm going to stick with Flick. I just think that, he's going to have the grappling advantage. I expect this fight to hit the mat a few times at least. I know he's going to have the gassing advantage, at least from what we've seen from Durden. I don't like the double weight cut, the eye infection stuff with Durden. I feel like that only says advantage Flick at this point. I will say this, though. Flick's got five losses, right? 4 by KO. I think Durden absolutely could find that KO early. If he doesn't, though, I think Flick takes over. I think Flick probably finds the sub 2nd or 3rd round. So we are up to, oh boy, a banger. We got Tafon and Chukwi going up against Jamie Pickett. Cody Saftic, can you get us rolling here?
Yeah, this is a fun fight, but it's another situation where you've got a mega prospect on one side. He's undefeated. As far as his Muay Thai career goes, he looked phenomenal. His striking looks really solid. Everyone's on to Tafon Nchukwi. He's one of these. He's only 26 years old. He's coming down a middleweight for the first time. There's so many good things that you can like about this guy, but then it all gets baked into the price tag. And then for that price tag, it's like, okay, where could things go wrong? Jamie Pickett, technically speaking, never been knocked out before, right? So what is this path to victory? If you look at the Al Montalvo fight on Contender Series, you see that sometimes Tafon's a little bit gun shy. Maybe not gun shy, but sometimes he'll just allow his opponent to outwork him a little bit. I think when you're that high level of a striker, you're waiting for these openings. You sit and wait on the openings. Eventually you capitalize. If he waits too long for Pickett, and Pickett just starts to outpoint him, kind of beat him to the punch, throw more volume out there, and he doesn't catch Pickett and doesn't become the first man to knock out Pickett, he could have some problems. And for this price tag, I don't want a guy that's going to have problems. But that being said, Jamie Pickett probably has never been knocked out because he just has not fought anybody of the likes of a Tafon and Nchukwi. He's fought a lot of lower level power punchers. Probably the one notable guy that he's fought would be Puliano Soriano on Contender Series. But again, there's a wrestler boxer who's very green, very developing his game. You know, is there a path for Tafon to go out there and knock him out? Yeah, most definitely. He's got high level striking. You've seen him body Montalvo on Contender Series. But am I a little bit worried that maybe we're overvalued? Because we see time and time again, young prospect come in, UFC debut, ton of hype, ton of backing. I don't want to say he's got a one-dimensional skill set, because if you've seen this guy grapple, it's pretty high level. I mean, he's a Team Lloyd Irvin guy. He's spent a lot of time working on his grappling chops. And as well, the fights that opponents have tried to take him down, namely the William Knight fight and his MMA debut, it's just like he seems pretty solid. So I'm not calling a one-dimensional fighter. I just mean there's so much more for him to see. Al Montalvo was an Alaska FC veteran who was just, if anything, going to be tough and come forward and throw some punches. Ended up being too hittable and ended up paying the price. But still gave a good account of himself. So why couldn't a guy like Jamie Pickett, who's got an 80-inch reach, who's got decent, good stamina, who's got good output, why couldn't he be that guy? But honestly, I am a Tafon truther. I honestly think he is a legitimate prospect. He reminds you of a young Israel Adesanya, let's call it, just being one of these really high-level strikers that hasn't really shown his well-rounded game yet, but is young and is on his rise and just needs to get fights and needs to get more experience and needs to move up, right? Needs to fight the Brad Tavares of the world on his way up, the way Izzy did once upon a time. So this could be his calling out party, but again, this is not a fight that I don't know that I love Tafon as like my lock of the night. I don't know that at that price tag, he's a must-have in all my parlays. Like there is that little bit of worry that, you know, he still got some ways to go, still got a little bit of a proven, you know, things to prove. So he's going to be the pick, but again, not like the most confident on it, I'd say.
Sure. Guru, who do you got?
Yeah, this is an interesting fight. I mean, I do feel like the line is a little bit off, like Cody was saying, because I think both these guys are, you know, real big, explosive guys. It's a volatile fight, because you saw in Jamie Pickett's last fight when he explodes and wants to close that distance. I mean, that combination he had on the Contender Series was pretty nasty that he got the knockout with. And, you know, that was a real good speed and he was really fast with it. So I definitely think like he's a dangerous guy. He's long. I feel like he's probably quicker, like a better mover, because Tafon is a little bit of a plotter. But the thing I like about Tafon is, I mean, he was fighting at heavyweight, light heavyweight, and now he's kind of down at his optimal weight class, I think. And even at those weight classes, he was actually, you know, pretty surprising or surprised me with his ability, like his output. He was throwing a lot of strikes. He was really keeping the pressure on guys. He was attacking the body. So I feel like the longer the fight goes, he might just be able to be the tougher guy, be a little bit tougher than Pickett, because we saw in that fight with Punahele Soriano, Pickett kind of was he was running away a little bit. He turned his back to a few punches, even though he was still tough in the fight. It's just he kind of, you know, surrendered a little bit in certain occasions, and I feel like Tafon can maybe take advantage of that. But like Cody was saying, I'm not like super confident. He's 4-0, so not really a, you know, super like really experienced guy. Pickett has a lot more fights, but I feel like Tafon is just going to probably be able to be the more durable guy, kind of outlast him early on, and then maybe finish him later in the fight.
Makes sense to me. Locke, who you liking?
Yeah, whenever you get a guy that's 4-0 and he's, you know, above -300, you got to have a little bit of question marks. So the guy hasn't truly been tested, right? And I'm not sure if Jamie Pickett's going to be the guy to actually test him here. If Pickett's able to stay conscious in those first 7.5 minutes, then it definitely gets a little bit interesting in the latter half of that fight. But when I was watching Nchukwi on the Contender Series against Batavio, and the first thing that came to my mind was like, okay, this seems like a guy that I could fade in the UFC once he makes it over there, because he's probably going to get a nice knockout here. But given his style, he doesn't seem that intriguing to me. Like he just seems like a Abdul Razak Al Hassan type of guy, just go out there and just knock his opponents out, right? But then when you go back and really watch the tape and watch his previous fights, the guy's pretty solid. Like I like to call him now the middleweight Francis Ngannou, but much better in a sense that he's more technical. Francis Ngannou, he can throw anything with those lunch pails and he's going to put you out. Whereas Tafon, you have to have some technique behind it. And I feel like he has that power. I think it can definitely translate down to 185. And Cody did touch on this on the stream yesterday too. It's like, is he going to look like Jared Cannonier coming down to 185, where he carries that power and just looks like an absolute monster going out there and just just touch of death thing these guys. You can't guarantee that. So it's hard to trust him at minus 300 with that type of price tag. I saw my guy, Jeremy O'Neill, in the comment section also kind of compare him to Louis Cosi. We just saw a couple of weeks ago go out there and, he was just squashing guys on the regional scene. Then he makes it to the UFC and he's struggling to finish a guy like Sasha Palatnikov. So is that what's going to happen here with Tafon? I'm not 100% sure because I do think his best win thus far is over a guy that's already in the UFC, in William Knight. And he had a decent fight in that. I would say it's a bit of an early stoppage in that fight too, if you guys do recall that fight. But still, he looked great in that fight. He throws in combinations. He's very sharp with his strikes. Ridiculous Muay Thai. But it comes down to what his gas tank looks like after that 1.5 round mark. With that said, I feel like we're going to have a little bit of a low output fight here, which is kind of, even if Jamie wants to go out there and try to initiate the grappling, I think Tafon has his judo background behind him to kind of help him there too. So I wouldn't mind if they go out there and just hug each other for like 7.5 minutes, because the line that I like the most here is the over 1.5 at minus 108. A lot of people, obviously, Tafon going out there and starting this guy in the first round is absolutely a possibility. But Jamie Pickett hasn't been knocked out yet. I feel like he's going to be able to keep that range enough to stay away from the big strikes of Tafon for at least 7.5 minutes. So I'd rather put my money on the over 7.5 minutes rather than playing Tafon at minus 300, because things can get very, very sticky after that 7 or 8 minute mark of this fight. But I'll still go with Tafon. I think he either gets maybe a late second round stoppage or something like that. I still think he puts out Jamie Pickett, but just not enough confidence to play a guy at minus 300 who's only 4-0. Even if you want to take his amateur record into consideration, he's 7-0. I mean, that's not a lot of experience in the MMA realm for a guy that you want to be playing minus 300 on. So, the pick is still Tafon, but not the most confident in it here.
Yeah, makes sense to me, man. I think you guys pretty much covered it all. Got to be very cautious. Tafon, very inexperienced. Locke, even you said, man, that's a very, very short amateur career, only 3 fights, and then stepping up to pro. Pickett had more amateur fights than Tafon has total fights even right now. And then you add another 30 pro fights on there. So we're talking about, a very experienced guy in Pickett going up against Tafon here, but I'm going to end up taking Tafon. Seems to be very dangerous from the very limited amount we've seen him. This guy goes in there and pretty much handles his business. We haven't seen a lot of him. We haven't seen him late in rounds. We got to put a question mark, a potential red flag on him coming from 205 to 185. But I do think that he's going to be a very powerful, very strong guy at 185. I think he might even look better, maybe even faster. But we got to err on the side of caution here. Not in love with the number, but I am going to end up going with Tafon here in this spot. Okay, we are up to, a very interesting fight, and one that I still am thinking about here. We got Gillian Robertson going up against Taila Santos. I think we're back to my man Guru kicking it off.
Yeah, like you said, this is an interesting fight, but I'm actually pretty confident in who I'm going to pick, and I'm actually going to go with Taila Santos in this one. I just feel like I watched, her last fight, a few of her other fights, and she does have a really padded record, but I just feel like in terms of striking, she's way, way ahead of Gillian. She throws, much straighter punches. I feel like she hits hard, and I've seen Gillian kind of not really take punches the best. So I definitely think like Taila could kind of bully her a little bit. I think the leg kicks will be a big thing too. And I liked her, just the strength in her last fight against Molly McCann. I mean, she just dominated her in all the clinch exchanges, was able to get on top and really be super solid. And I don't know if she's, going to want to do that against Gillian in terms of taking her down and things like that. But I don't think Gillian's going to be able to close that distance for the single leg, which is what she really likes to get most of the time. Like when you watch her fight, like with Courtney Casey, Courtney Casey, she doesn't stop anyone's takedowns. And Poliana Botelho, the way that she has that stance, I feel like she kind of gives the single leg a little bit. So with Taila Santos, I feel like it's going to be a lot harder to close that distance for Gillian. And I don't think she's going to be physical enough to get takedowns in the clinch. I feel like Taila will be able to disengage from there. So Gillian does like to, pull guard and then use X guard, kind of try to get on top. But if none of that works, I just don't think she's going to be able to handle Taila on the feet. I don't know if Taila's necessarily going to finish Robertson, but I could see her like kind of winning a dominant decision or even, getting a TKO. So I'm going to go with Taila in this one.
Nice. Locke, who you like?
Yeah, this is an interesting one too. Both women were scheduled to fight a couple weeks ago against different opponents, and we got to break down the Taila Santos and Montana De La Rosa fight because that one got pulled out the day of, and that's a fight where I actually ended up taking Montana and had a small play on her, I believe at like plus 200 and something, but that was a spot where I thought De La Rosa's wrestling could definitely come into play, as I feel like she has higher level wrestling than most women in that division. On the opposite side here with Gillian Robertson, though, I kind of agree with Guru that she's going to have some struggles getting this fight to the ground. I think that Montana definitely had the better opportunity and chances of getting this to the ground. Robertson, great jiu-jitsu, but still working on her entries and trying to like round out her striking game to really blend in her takedowns and get this fight to the ground, where she's way more better than most of her opponents. She's working real hard with Dean Thomas. I believe she has her black belt now, if I'm not mistaken, probably brown belt, but she is very high level with him now, and we see it in her fights. She's a submission over position type of girl, and I always like those types of fighters, which is why personally I've already taken a shot on the under 2.5 at plus 150. I think both women are live for a finish here, whether it's Gillian Robertson getting this fight to the ground and kind of just swarming Santos on the ground, whether it's with ground and pound or even pulling off a submission. But if this fight stays on the feet, it could get very ugly very quickly for Gillian Robertson, as I do believe that Santos will have a significant advantage on the feet. Robertson's striking, it's mainly just like a one punch, just throw something out there to look like she's staying active to try to blend in a takedown behind it, but she kind of telegraphs it regardless. It's been successful for her against other girls. How it's going to work against a girl like Taila Santos, I'm not as confident in. Now, this is a fight that I've been going back and forth all week, at least since this fight has been announced, which is why it's out of pick 'em odds. You know what I mean? At the beginning of the week, I sided with Gillian Robertson. I felt like eventually she would be able to get the takedown. Her durability should be able to hold up for that first 5 or 6 minutes. And then after that, maybe the takedowns will start to come to her, and then she'll start to advance positions. But like the thing about the under 2.5, so it missed the last 2 times in Gillian Robertson's fights. The last one was Poliana Botelho, but Botelho didn't really give her much of an opening to go for a finish. She was just accepting pretty much being on the ground, really not fighting to get back to her feet, which is very concerning for anybody who had the under there. And then the Courtney Casey fight, she misses it by like what, 1 minute, 2 minutes. I think there's only 30 seconds left in that fight, right? So that one was a little bit of a bummer too. But I'm always riding with Gillian Robertson unders. You know what I mean? But more often than not, her unders go out there and hit. And if you're going to give me plus money, especially against Gillian Robertson having somebody that has as good of a striker as Taila Santos is, I think it could be very troublesome for Robertson on the feet. So, man, I hate switching my pick again midweek, but I'm starting to switch more to the Taila Santos side, thinking that she'll probably get the TKO on the feet. But man, it's such a very, very close fight. I'm just sitting back, taking the under 2.5, and I think I'll be happy regardless, no matter who wins here. So I'll go with Taila Santos via TKO, but man, I've been jumping all over the place this whole week with this fight. But as of right now, the day before the fight, I'm going with Taila Santos via KO.
Ooh, man, I feel very, very similar, Locke. Cody Saftic, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a pass to me, right? Because it is one of those fights that you flip-flop on. It's women's MMA. It's going to be I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think they're matched up pretty well. And it's like styles make fights. And in this case, Gillian Robertson's not the striker. She wants to get this fight to the ground. She wants to use her BJJ. She wants to be on top. She's got probably the wrestling advantage, but she needs to consistently get this fight to the ground. Taila Santos, we've seen her wrestling massively improve in the last fight against Molly McCann. But for the most part, she wants to keep this fight standing, and she's going to have a massive stand-up advantage. She's going to be able to win those striking exchanges. She's going to be able to win those clinch exchanges, and she'll be able to cruise on road to a victory. I want to bet the over because I don't really feel like I got a great lean on either side. Like, could Gillian Robertson get the takedowns and look better? Yeah, of course. I think she's making a lot of improvements. I like when she was at American Top Team, getting rounds in with some of the best fighters in the game, some of the best women's fighters in the game. But moving to North Carolina, yes, she's with Dean Thomas, like what kind of shape she's going to be in. I'm sure she's going to be in good shape. But what I always go back to is that Macy Barber fight where she gets hit a couple times and she just shells up. And so that's what makes me not want to take this over prop. Because Taila Santos, on one hand, she's got 2 fights in the UFC, both by decision. She gets out-grappled by Mara Barella, right? The path to victory for Gillian Robertson, but it's a decision. And then she routs Molly McCann. But again, it's a decision. With Gillian Robertson, she's been finishing so many lower-level fighters and, been finished a few times herself, that there's this perception that she's a great finisher. But really, I mean, 2 fights ago against Courtney Casey, the fight should have gone to this distance. It missed by like 29 seconds. And then in her last fight, you see her go the distance. So she's not above it. I like that fight to start round 3 was minus 185. That seemed good. Fight to fully go the distance was minus 135. Seemed okay. But then again, it's like they're saying, the more you think about this fight, the more you think about the variables. And the variables are, if Gillian Robertson doesn't get the fight to the ground, Is she going to spend 15 minutes getting drubbed standing? No, she's not. So that makes you wonder, is the decision prop the way to go? What Locke's saying with maybe you go Santos with the knockout, it's to me, it just feels like a little bit chasing. See, earlier in the week as well, you have 15 fights, then you have 14 fights. But this fight, yeah, I'll hit a pass on it. But as you lose fights, now there's like a sense of desperation. We're like, wow, my parlay can't fit 12 fights now, so I guess I will have some exposure to this. Like, you talk yourself into it. But ultimately, it's a competitive fight that could, in my opinion, go either way. I don't know that I got a strong lean either side, so I'm just going to hit the straight pass on this fight.
Words of wisdom. Man, I'm telling you guys what. I'm with Locke, man. I've been back and forth on this one, so many ways. To me, it's a very simple breakdown. The fight plays out on the ground. You got to lean Robertson, right? Fight plays out on the feet. You got to take Santos. It's really that simple. I'm with you, Cody. It's just going to have to be a total pass, man. I almost feel like I can hear a convincing argument for every path to, for both obvious path to victories. The under makes sense. The over makes sense. For me, I got no confidence here, man. I think we got better spots than this. It's going to be a pass for me. I'll pick Robertson to win. I picked her earlier in my prediction video, but man, I think this is truly a coin flip. And Guru, man, I think you might be right. If Robertson does not get this fight to the mat, she's going to get pieced up bad. And I just don't know if she's going to be able to do it. So it's going to be a total pass for me. All right, here we go. Here's one, boys, that I ain't passing on. We got Duran Win going up against Antonio Arroyo. I think it's my man Locke here on this one.
Yes, sir. So the stare down, just as comical, if not more comical than I thought it would look. I thought I was waiting for all week. Let's be honest. It's even going to look funnier when they step into the cage and actually square off with one another here. But man, Duran Win, like he does not back down either. In that stare down, you see him just go all the way up to Arroyo and just snap his head back and look straight into his eyes. Like the guy is there to fight for sure. But when he steps into the cage, things get a little bit iffy for him. Cardio, very suspect. You know what I mean? Is he going to be able to go out there and continuously take down Arroyo, hold down Arroyo, a guy that's way bigger than him? You know what I mean? I don't even want to pull out the stats here, but way bigger than him. And you guys would get the picture already. But he's shown that he does slow down later in fights. And Arroyo, you can kind of say the same thing in his last fight against Andre Muniz when he's kind of getting grapple fucked for the first 2 rounds. And then in that 3rd round looks even more tired too, right? But with Duran Win, on the other hand, the guy has just so much distance to make up whenever he's going for these takedowns. He's going to be at a striking disadvantage for sure here against Arroyo. And I just feel like the fight won't hit the ground as often in the 2nd and 3rd round as it did in the 1st round. And that's where I think the shakiness for Duran Win comes, because can he really win a fight on the feet for even 10 minutes, especially against a guy like this who has the power that he has the finishes that he has on his record? So the spot that I kind of liked earlier in the week was the Arroyo via TKO open at plus 785. I thought that was absolutely criminal. That's absolutely insane of a line. Now it's at plus 380, kind of more in the ballpark of where I thought it should be at. But I do like Arroyo. The only thing that's kind of scaring me off as well too is he does have a little bit of a shaky cardio and gas tank problem himself, and that's what's really scaring me off at that minus 160 line. If you're giving me closer to evens here, I'd absolutely go for Arroyo. And yeah, I'm actually going to sprint that Arroyo via KO prop as well too, because I think that's one of the more likely outcomes of this fight. So I do like Arroyo. I think he's going to be able to maintain his range in that 2nd and 3rd round, land the big shots from the outside. The knee up the middle is going to be very, very crucial for him, whether it hits the chest, the body, or even the head or the top of the head of Duran. When it's going to land, it's going to do some damage, and I think that's going to be very key for him here. So as long as he's able to stay upside for rounds 2 and 3, or whenever he ends up getting that finish, I think Arroyo is definitely very, very live to get a finish in this fight against Duran Win. So it's kind of shitty though for Duran here. I mean, he's probably one of the hotter prospects coming into the UFC that just never really panned out. Like he had all this hype coming in because he's DC's little brother essentially, and he kind of fights similarly to him too. Always the shorter guy and the smaller guy in the cage, so that always gets a little bit interesting for him. But here he's dealing with the tallest task he's ever had to deal with in the cage, and I think it's going to be too much for him to handle. So I do like Arroyo to win this fight via KO, probably 2nd or 3rd round.
There you go. Cody Saftic, who you liking?
Yeah, I could see hitting a pass on this one as well. However, I'm going to go dogger pass and therefore end up with Duran Win. I mean, it's not anything that I like about Duran Win. His last 2 fights in the UFC have been absolutely abysmal. But on one hand, you can give him the benefit that Darren Stewart had great gas tank and just brought that pressure on him. Jared Mearshart had great gas tank, brought that pressure on him. Antonio Arroyo doesn't have a great gas tank. And not only that, his volume's just really, really low. So to beat Duran Win, especially with that kind of size advantage and that reach advantage, you just want to maul the body, kick the body from the outside, cause this guy to try to take you down, make him work, tire him out. But Arroyo is taking the fight on like a week's notice. And the UFC knew what they were doing, right? You've got a guy that was a super prospect, and he is DC's boy, and DC's our boy, and he has not been looking good. So they give him Antonio Braga Nito, which is quite literally probably the most winnable fight for him that they could give him. It's, he's so slow on the feet, has no striking, has no cardio, is not going to take Duran Win down. They're doing Duran Win a favor. That fight falls apart. He's getting a short notice replacement. I'm not saying it's a favor. He's getting Arroyo. Guy's 6'3". Guy's got legitimate BJJ. But truthfully, the fact that he's low output and doesn't have a great gas tank, that bodes well for Duran Win, because all he really needs to do is take this guy down, hold him down, tire him out. When the fight is standing, he doesn't got to worry about like the Mearshart fight. Mearshart was just all over him like a dog on a bone. He won't have to worry about that here because Arroyo's, one, not aggressive on a full camp, and two, coming on a short notice, a guy that's already got a suspect gas tank coming on short notice, he's going to try to conserve himself. The 195-pound catchweight, that's an indication that when they called Arroyo up, can you take this fight? He wasn't like, yeah, hey, buddy, ready to go. Put a camp in. I can make 185. It was like, no, I can make 195. And that plays better towards Duran Win, who's undefeated at catchweights of 191, 194, 195, and 205. Despite being so small, he's got like that DC complex, so to speak. Doesn't got great power, but I honestly think that if he goes and he gets some takedowns and he holds Antonio Arroyo down, then all of a sudden time ticks away on the clock. Arroyo doesn't mount that comeback, and what you end up is with a Duran Win finish. Or not a finish, sorry, a Duran Win decision or a Duran Win victory at the very least. He is dog money. Maybe that's the path there. Last thing I want to throw on there is the size discrepancy is crazy, right? And that's all everyone's talking about. Like, man, look at that size discrepancy. If this was a striking match, then yeah, that size discrepancy would mean a lot. If it's a grappling match, what does it mean? Being 5'6" like Duran Win is, he's got a low center of gravity. If he's on top of you, even though most guys just stand back up when he does take them down, theoretically speaking, it is tougher to move a guy like that. When you're 6'3", it's like, you have those long legs. It's tougher to just explode. You see flyweights and bantamweights and featherweights and lightweights. These guys are able to explode and get back up to their feet because they're smaller, right? When you see these light heavyweights, these guys with these long legs, they got to create a lot more space, and it's a lot more movement to get back up. Duran Win's just got to chain wrestle this guy for 2 rounds, and lucky for him, he's had a full camp, whereas Arroyo hasn't, right? So listen, it's not a lock by any stretch because it's Duran Win we're talking about, but it's a dogger pass. So therefore, I'm going to end up on Win, and he's been a decision machine as of late. So I would think that he uses the wrestling to inch out that decision victory.
Guru, who do you got?
Yeah, I agree with Cody. I mean, we broke down the fight with Antonio Arroyo when he fought Eric Anders, and I mean, I did really have a lot of great things to say about it with that fight. And I mean, I don't know. I'm still actually going to pick Arroyo, so I'm not agreeing with him 100%. But I just don't think that I'm not going to bet on this fight at all. I'm not confident on a guy like Antonio Arroyo because just when you watch his fight with Andre Muniz, I just was not impressed with that fight at all. I mean, I know Muniz is a good fighter, but like there was portions in that fight where he was just standing over him, not doing anything. Like I don't know what he was like thinking that was going to win in the decision or what, but like he's kicking his legs like once every 25 seconds for 2 minutes of a round. And then even in the third round, I mean, he clearly had to have known he was losing the fight, and they stood him up, and he didn't throw any strikes in the last 20 seconds of the fight. He just kind of, moved around and lost the fight. So I definitely feel like I don't know. I don't think he has like that killer instinct or something, but he's definitely a big, like explosive guy, really good kicks, mover, and his jiu-jitsu is probably going to be better, and he's a way bigger guy than Duran Win. So, I mean, I'm going to pick Arroyo like really reluctantly to win, but yeah, I mean, I don't want anything to do with this fight, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I'm going to take Arroyo. I like Arroyo. I do think the size is going to be a little bit too much. I do like that KO prop like Locke was talking about, but I think the reason why that was initially so high is just because, Duran Win's never been knocked out. He's been finished once. He got caught in the guillotine, I think it was, by Mearshart, but I don't know, man. Duran Win just doesn't do it for me. This is a guy that I just don't think has any business at middleweight. I understand the mini DC kind of thing going on, and yeah, there's some overlap there, and, they train together and whatnot, and I think Duran Win could be a good fighter, but man, I feel like he's just missing that something, whether it be like just the drive, the determination, or if he's just getting outsized. But I'm just not high on Duran Win. I agree with you guys, or Cody, that there is a chance that Duran Win does, I think he's got a path to victory here. And if he repeatedly gets takedowns and can stay on top of Arroyo, yeah, I definitely think he could win a decision. But I'd be highly disappointed in Arroyo to lose this one. So much size. I just think Arroyo, I think he's got a good shot finding that KO with the size discrepancy. It's a guy that throws some really killer kicks. But I am a little bit worried. But you know what? I'm going to take Arroyo on this one. I just think it's so much size. Come on, Arroyo, get this one done. But yeah, do you guys have anything else you want to throw on that one, or do we move on to Pannie Kianzad versus Sijara Eubanks? I think it's my man Cody Saftic starting us off here.
Yeah, the panty snatcher, Kianzad. You know what? Honestly, I just think that she has that natural size advantage, being that we see her compete on the Ultimate Fighter at 145 pounds. She's more of a natural 135er, obviously, but someone that fills out the division, you know, fairly okay. Whereas Sijara Eubanks is, you know, her biggest weapon is that she's so strong, and, you know, she can be a grindy power grappler, not wrestler per se, but once she does get the fight to the ground, I mean, her BJJ is of high level. If she is able to get Pannie Kianzad down, then yeah, I could see her, you know, grinding out probably a decision victory. But it's going to be tough to routinely take Kianzad down and hold her down. Is it possible? Absolutely. But more so than that, if Kianzad starts stuffing a few of these takedowns, keeps it standing, she's just got a big striking advantage. Not only that, her volume is just much, much better than Eubanks. If Eubanks tries to match her with volume as far as the stand-up goes, she's going to gas herself out. We've seen that the cardio issues rear their ugly heads a few times with Eubanks in the past. But if she's able to pace herself and get takedowns and just, you know, grind out some top control, won't gas as much. Pannie just got to make her work. And what we've seen from Pannie in her last two fights, there is some growth, there is some development, and she's really making her opponents work a lot more. You see that in the Betch Gohea fight, you see in the Jesse Rose Clark fight, and even the Macy Chiasson fight way back when it was the Ultimate Fighter final. I remember she did stuff all 6 takedowns for Macy Chiasson. Eventually, fight hits the ground, she gets submitted. But you see where it's like, okay, she realizes grappling is her deficiency, wrestling is her deficiency. She's trying to work on it. If they match her up with low-level opponents, she's going to be able to show that. They're giving her increasingly better opponents. She's been showing it. Is Eubanks too much for her? Like, I don't think so. This is not exactly, again, this is not the most confident play that I have on the card, but I think that Pannie Kianzad is eventually able to just keep this fight standing longer than it hits the ground and just outwork her with the volume. So again, I think there's a lot of live underdogs on this card, and I think that this fight's another one where, you know, it's probably should be closer to a even fight.
I love it. Guru, who you taking?
Yeah, this fight, it's a close one, and it's interesting because when you look at it, it's like Julia Avila recently beat Pannie, but, you know, Sijara beat Betch, so they got to figure it out here who's better. But, I mean, I just feel like, you know, when I look at the fight, I just like the trajectory of Pannie's career a little more. I mean, Sijara, she's 35. She had that little 2-run streak in the UFC, but even, you know, she had the good win over Avila, but Sarah Moraes, I don't really put a lot of weight into that win right there, but she looked okay in her last fight, but I just feel like if Pannie makes her work on the feet, I feel like Pannie has some of the better boxing in the whole division for Bantamweight. I feel like she throws, you know, really fast combinations, and she hits pretty hard, even though none of those girls have, like, big knockout power, but you definitely could see, like, her punches definitely, you know, have an impact on her opponents. But I feel like if she could just kind of get out of that first round, where Sijara is, you know, notorious for that. She's real strong in the first round. She'll hit her takedowns, get on top, and she kind of has a more of a, you know, mauling style, like control. I don't think she has any submissions in her career, but she, so I don't think Pannie's necessarily going to be too worried about getting finished. So even if she gets taken down in that first round, maybe just conserve energy or something, and then second and third round come out hard, try to get the win, because I feel like if she pushes hard in those second and third rounds, Sijara can kind of just fade away. So I'm going to go with Pannie to get the win.
I love it. Lock of the night. Who you got?
Yeah, I think it's going to be unanimous around here. I've been going back and forth about this fight as well, too. It's pretty much grappler versus striker, right? Eubanks wants to get this to the ground, implement her high-level jiu-jitsu, and then Pannie Kianzad, she wants to keep the fight on the feet, and she wants to keep this at range, kind of just pick apart Sijara for those 3 rounds. I think neither woman is live here for a finish either, which is why, you know, the over 1.5 is minus 630, the over 2.5 is minus 360. Like, it's insane that nobody's expecting anybody to get a finish in this fight, and it absolutely makes sense. Like, my concern here, though, is if Pannie does get taken down, how good is she going to be able how well is she going to be able to defend and then get back to her feet, because she can't just spend the entire round on her back. That's where things get a little bit fishy, right? But Cody did touch on it in terms of the size discrepancy here. With Sijara, she more than likely would be a lot more comfortable at 125 pounds compared to 135, where she's just going up against bigger women here. Caitlin Vera, we saw it in that fight. She was definitely the bigger woman there. And we saw, what would happen in those situations. Now we got Penny Kianzad, who, in my opinion, not as vicious of a striker as Caitlin Vera, but can still go out there and put on a good pace, strike well from distance and kind of just take, a solid 15 minutes home. So I'll go with Kianzad to win via decision. Just not with the utmost confidence on this fight either. Just that one takedown could change everything. She just needs one takedown per 2 rounds, and she could have a good, pretty easy time of holding Penny down. But I'm still going with Penny here to win via decision.
All right. Well, I tell you what, man, this was the fight that I didn't have a lot of confidence in, but I feel much better now that the crew's fully backing me. A clean sweep. I got Penny in this one as well. My thing is, man, Sijara Eubanks, don't get me wrong. I got it right the last time, right? I figured she'd lose that fight. I feel like I've been on the wrong side of Sijara Eubanks' fight so much. It's just ridiculous. And I'm going to back Penny Kianzad as that underdog in this spot. You guys broke it down, man. We know how this fight's going to play out if Penny's going to win. We know how this fight's going to play out if Sijara Eubanks is going to win. But, Guru, I feel like you touched on my favorite point, in that it's the career trajectory. Penny Kianzad, it seems like we're seeing growth. We're seeing a better fighter every time she comes out there. And Sijara Eubanks is 35 years old and, kind of a mixed bag. I feel like every fight, you just you don't really know. She's looking good here. She's looking bad here. Her gas tank's all right in this fight. It's terrible in the next. Just the inconsistency. You know what I mean? So give me the underdog in this spot. I'll take Penny with my guys here. So we are last fight on the prelims, and it's a good one, man. A very interesting fight, I think. We got Anthony Pettis going up against Alex Morono, and I believe Guru gets us going here.
Yeah, man, I really like this fight, and I feel like it's a good fight for Pettis, actually. This is the last fight on his contract, and I don't know if we're going to see him in the UFC again. I mean, I kind of feel like, Sergio's over there in Bellator, and he probably will go over there too, I believe. But, I feel like UFC, they like Anthony Pettis, so they've been giving him like fucking killers, man. If you look at his like fights, like he's only fought the best of the best. So, I mean, maybe they're doing him a little bit of a favor here. They're giving him Alex Morono, and they're letting him potentially have a good finish on his way out into free agency to me, because I feel like even though Pettis is kind of slowing down a little bit, I just think it would be a bad loss if he lost to Alex Morono, man. We just saw Alex Morono fight last month against Reese McKee, and even that fight, he took a lot of damage. It was a war. I mean, he got hurt in that fight. And Pettis, I just feel like, is going to be a lot slicker. He's going to move a lot better, be the faster guy, more dynamic. Morono, I mean, he's really tough. He has a lot of UFC fights, and I don't want to disrespect him too bad. He's a good fighter, but I just feel like Pettis is just on another level. I don't think the blitzes that Morono does are going to necessarily work in this fight. I feel like Pettis is just going to be moving around. And I do think Pettis looked better on the scales, and he was saying that he, went completely sober for this fight. So we'll see. Maybe, it'll look a little bit better for him. But, I mean, if Morono can make it a really ugly fight, we have seen Pettis kind of, give up in certain fights, like in the later part of his career. But I feel like he's just going to be able to, have his way in this one. And I actually feel like he will get a finish in the first 2 rounds. So I'm going to go with Showtime here.
Nice. Cody Saftic, hit us with it.
Yeah, I think I'm chasing that underdog just on the basis that with Alex Morono, we have seen him get knocked out. That is the path of victory for Anthony Pettis. He's much cleaner. He is the better striker. Why not intercept this guy and catch him the way we've seen it happen before? But the guys that have knocked out Alex Morono are Khaos Williams, who we're going to talk about, and Nico Price, guys that just have an exuberant amount of power to begin with. So is it fair to say Alex Morono is chinny? No, not exactly. As far as Anthony Pettis, he's got a Superman punch victory, a KO victory over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who we'll talk about in a minute. But outside of that, he's losing the fight. He's backing up. He lands the Superman punch. It's a sweet KO. It's a nice little moment for him. That was kind of, in my opinion, maybe his last hurrah to pick up that victory. But outside of that knockout, the last time he had finished an opponent with strikes is when he head kicked, or strikes, he body kicked Donald Cerrone, and then he head kicks Joe Lozon 2012, 8 years ago. That was him at his best. Since then, you don't really see all that power translate. So with Anthony Pettis, he does have these moments. He drops Tony Ferguson really bad in their fight. But after the first round, it's just like he starts to fatigue a little bit. Morono, if anything, cardio, you could argue that it has been an issue at certain points. Maybe the Nico Price fight is a good example. He did get tired prior to getting KO'd. Another good example would be his fight with Max Payne Griffin, where he looks completely gassed in the 3rd round. You don't want to get gassed in there with Anthony Pettis and be starting to eat those shots. Maybe he does get knocked out. But for my money's worth, him training at Fortis MMA, he looks in awesome shape right now. You do see his last couple of fights. If you don't dice this guy, he just keeps coming forward and he stays in your face. Is he more technical striker than Anthony Pettis? No shot. But just being able to stay in his face and pressure him, I think will yield him some success. Beyond that, going to the Reese McKee fight, he wasn't taking down anybody. He's apparently a BJJ black belt, but like never takes anybody down. You see him finally use his wrestling against Reese McKee, and all of a sudden it's like, you know what? That is an element to his game. Now, it's unfair to say Anthony Pettis can't wrestle because, again, when he's getting taken down, it's, you know, by high-level guys. But is it the best wrestlers necessarily? No, not necessarily. It's kind of anybody that Anthony Pettis has been fighting has been able to take him down. Donald Cerrone took him down twice. Carlos Dhiego Pereira obviously took him down 3 times. Even Nate Diaz was able to take him down with a sloppy little judo throw. You know, basically just muscle the guy to the ground. Last thing I want to add was Anthony Pettis. He's the best 155-pounder in the world. You know, the guy's got GOAT status back in the day. Comes from the WEC where he's got the sweetest highlight of all time. Still to this day, one of the sweetest highlights you've ever seen. He's the poster boy for the UFC, right? But his life has just kind of been all over the place a little bit, right? He tries to move down to 145, can't really make the weight, comes back to 155. Now he tries at 170. Outside of the win over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, I don't think he's looked good at 170 at all. He had left Duke Rufus's and went to Greg Jackson's for 2 camps. It didn't yield him any success. And then for this fight, him talking about like, well, I'm not drinking anymore. It's like, why would you wait till the end of your career to stop drinking? You got paid $310,000 against Donald Cerrone, right? So the writing's on the wall. The UFC no longer wants to pay you that, which is why you're not fighting a top contender or somebody with a name. You're fighting Alex Morono. If you beat Alex Morono, there's a good chance you still could get released because it does nothing for Bellator to sign you. You got to win over Alex Morono. No big deal. The UFC doesn't want to risk one of their stars. If Pettis beats him, then we got to resign him. We can't let a guy go when he just beat a big name. So them giving him Morono is just like, yeah, maybe like Guru's saying, maybe it's a send-off. Here you go. But it's probably a tougher fight than expected just because Morono's a nobody in the division by most people's standards. And Anthony Pettis still has that name value. But similar to his arch nemesis rival at one time, Benson Henderson in Bellator, like these guys are just, they're past due, you know, they've been in there a long time. They've trained at the highest level for a long time. They've achieved GOAT status and made millions of dollars and won world championships. And now they have to deal with the realization that they're fighting Alex Morono, you know, on a free card. And it ain't even the co-main event. Like, there's a problem there, right? So as far as betting this fight, again, it's another, I think, live dog situation. I know on my other 2 shows this week, like maybe gave Anthony Pettis a bit of flack. Like ultimately, is this a winnable fight for him? Absolutely. I just cannot get behind him with my dollar. So for that reason, I'm not betting at Anthony Pettis. I will take that dog shot on Alex Morono.
Woo, dang. Locke, who you got?
I'm absolutely with Cody here. It's really tough to back 2020 Pettis, no matter how good he looks on the scales, no matter what he says in interviews. Can you really go out there and trust this guy who, before pretty much every single one of his fights since he's lost the title, he always keeps saying, I'm coming back better. This new weight class, I'm going to look great. Watch, I'm going to look the best I ever have. I cut down to 145. I'm finally bigger than these guys. I'm going to look great. Does nothing there. 170. Oh, I don't have to cut weight. I'm going to look great against these guys. Doesn't do that well over there either, right? So now he's back on 155, or you know, he's just all over the place in terms of where his priorities are. And now he knows that with them giving them this matchup against Alex Morono, he's probably on the way out, especially if he takes a loss here, right? I told one of my guys, the guy Tony, who I do my Combative Series show with, I texted him, I'm like, Pettis has his next fight. And I'm like, I could give you 15 guesses as to who he's fighting, and you probably still won't get it. And that's the type of fight that we have here with Pettis. Is like, it's kind of a layup. Like, he has to go out there and win this one. He must win it. If he doesn't win it, then obviously he's on the way out. We know about the UFC cuts and all that type of stuff. Why would they want to continuously pay a guy $300K plus if he can't even get a win over somebody who's not even in the top 15, right? So he should go out there. He should go out there and starch Alex Morono in that first round. Morono has a suspect chin, as most people say, but in my opinion, Khaos Williams, obviously that guy hits like a ton of bricks. Nico Price, another very hard hitter in that division. So Anthony Pettis, in my opinion, he needs to be very precise with his strikes in that first round to be able to get that finish. He needs to hit him like right on the chin, perfect timing, perfect precision. But do you really trust that out of him in 2020? I'm not 100% sure I do. So I think that Alex Morono, also given the fact that he's at Fortis MMA, one of the last guys they had fight Anthony Pettis was from Fortis MMA as well, and Carlos Dhiego Pereira. So if you can kind of replicate that kind of game plan, and obviously Alex Morono doesn't have the physical abilities of a Carlos Dhiego Pereira, but if you give your damnedest to replicate that type of game plan, I think you're going to be successful. And I think you can break Anthony Pettis, which I think is another thing that kind of he's kind of developed over in his later part of his career, is that willingness to say, fuck it, I'm out. I'm still going to cash $300K. I'm good. I gave my best. I'm gonna get my way out. So Alex Morono, obviously not the better technical striker here. He's gonna look a way more sloppier than whatever Pettis is throwing at him. But as long as he doesn't go out, I think he has a really good shot of pulling off the upside here. So the spot that I like the most is Morono via decision, which I think is roughly in that plus 300 range, if I'm not mistaken, plus 320 right now. I think he could break Pettis, keep the pressure on him, don't let him breathe, keep him on the back foot, and that's the kind of style that has always broken Anthony Pettis, unless he decides to jump off the cage and Superman punch Wonder Boy. But outside of that, that's the way most people have been beating him. So I like Morono to win this. Personally, I haven't taken a full bet on him yet. The chin issues does have me a little bit skeptical here, but just looking at it on surface, I definitely like Morono to win this fight via decision.
Boy, I tell you what, guys, this is a tough one. A fight that I definitely thought I was going to end up taking Morono at that massive plus 200 underdog spot. But you know what? When it came down to it, I watched the tape. I did the research. I ended up coming out on the Pettis side. And let me tell you why. You know, Pettis, I do feel like, is taking things a little more serious now for whatever reason, for better or worse. You know, I feel like Pettis is one of these guys that, you know, we've seen him quit in fights. We've seen him not necessarily take fights too serious. I feel like fights where he showed up at welterweight, I haven't been impressed with how he's looked on the scales. He's looked a little bit soft, a little bit flat. I do feel like at today's weigh-ins, he looked to be in very good shape. Like the first fight where I go, wow, I feel like this guy actually looks like a 170er here. Now, Morono, yeah, man, he's a guy that, you know, I've been pretty high on before, but I kind of feel like he's been exposed a little bit, you know. I'm not really going to hold the Khaos Williams KO against him. You know, we've seen Khaos Williams. This guy hits you with that early shot, you're going to lose. He's going to knock you out, right? But, man, Guru, I'm with you, man. That fight against Reese McKee, I just feel like if Reese McKee's having this much success touching you up, Pettis should as well. I think it's a big step down for Pettis. But I tell you what, I'm also with you guys in the fact that if Pettis loses this fight, he's going to Bellator. If Pettis wins this fight, I still think he's probably going to Bellator, you know. I do think there is some sort of a narrative being pushed here by the UFC. You know, if Pettis wins, it's over who? A Morono going into Bellator? That's no hype, you know what I mean? At the same time, if Pettis loses this fight to Morono and goes to Bellator, oh man, they cut him at just the right time. He couldn't even beat Alex Morono, you know what I mean? So I'm going to take Pettis, absolutely not having anything to do with where he's currently sitting at on that betting line. That's just way, way out of whack to me. Like Anthony Pettis minus 170 against Alex Morono. Sure, that probably makes sense to me, but minus 240. Come on, guys. That's crazy from what we've seen out of this guy as of late. Against a tough dude. You know, Alex Morono's no joke. I honestly think Morono at his best gets in there with one of those berserker flurries. He could probably clip anybody and take him out. Pettis included. But all that being said and done, I'm going to pick Pettis to win, but man, I'm just not in love with that number. That's just wild to me. So if you're on the value side, man, I get it. Morono all day, and I'm not going to be surprised if Morono wins, honestly, but the pick is Pettis for me. So we're kicking off the main card. Marcin Tybura going up against Greg Hardy, a heavyweight clash, and I think it's my man, lock of the night up on this one.
Yes, sir. So this is finally the time we get to see Greg Hardy go out there and fight somebody where his athleticism and his explosiveness won't be as much of an advantage as it was against his prior opponents. I think Marcin Tybura, outside of Alexander Volkov, who Greg Hardy obviously took that fight on super short notice. I believe it was Alistair Overeem who pulled out that night. But that was a good way to kind of gauge where Greg Hardy's at. And, going 3 rounds with Alexander Volkov, quite impressive, I got to say. Just ask Walt Harris, who just got put out a couple months ago by that man. But here with Greg Hardy, we saw something interesting in his last fight against Maurice Green. We saw him sucking wind a little bit more than he normally does after that first round. You know, I mean, he took Maurice Green down, seemed to almost struggle to keep him down, which is where he probably blew that gas tank of his. Because in that second round, man, he looked like he was really wearing it for some reason. Luckily for him, he was able to land a beautiful power jab to Maurice Green, drop him, and then follow up with a bunch of ground and pound and get him out of there. But if that fight hit the third round, things would have got very, very interesting because he looked dead, D-E-A-D, dead. I don't know about you guys, but that looked very, very concerning to me. And it seemed to be because of the fact that the grappling was initiated in that fight, right? Now, if Marcin Tybura, great all-around fighter, probably one of the best overall fighters in the heavyweight division in terms of being good almost at everything. I think he's going to be able to successfully mix in his striking with the takedowns, get Greg Hardy down, and kind of just suck the wind out of him that way. I think the early finish for Greg Hardy is probably the only way for him to kind of win this fight. And if he wants to go out there and try to Ben Sassoli or Yorgan De Castro, Marcin Tybura here, it's not going to happen. I think Marcin is just too good. Yorgan De Castro was way too gun shy after round one, letting that fight pretty much go away. Ben Sassoli doesn't seem like he knows how to put combinations together, and we obviously know where the hell his life is headed at this point in time. Marcin Tybura, on the other hand, much better overall fighter here. Why he's the dog? Again, it's at a pick 'em. It's pretty much at pick 'em, so I understand that. But I do think that Marcin should be a slight favorite here. I do think he has all the tools. The only concern is obviously him getting knocked out. But I don't see Greg Hardy going out there and winning a decision. I don't see that happening. I think Tybura is going to have the cardio advantage too. So even if this hits the third round, I could see him possibly taking Greg Hardy down and maybe even just ground and pounding him. It all depends on what Hardy's cardio looks like, right? If it looks like that Moraes Green fight, he's in a bunch of trouble. But if he's able to keep a pace like he did in the Ben Sassoli fight and in the other fight that he went to a decision, and even the Alexander Volkov fight, keep that kind of slow grinding pace, he will be able to make it to that 15th minute. But I think like Marcin might be able to push this a little bit more, really bring the fight to Hardy and kind of like break him later in the fight. So I think this is a spot where Tybura round 3 could definitely be a live spot at plus 1425, or even Tybura to win by decision. I think is a solid spot at plus 240. But I think Tybura takes this one. He's, again, better all-around mixed martial artist, and I don't think the athleticism and explosiveness of Greg Hardy is going to bail him out this time. So I'm going with Tybura.
Right on. Cody Saftic, Marcin Tybura, Greg Hardy. Who you thinking?
Oh, you're on mute.
You're muted, Cody.
Sorry, boys. Yeah, I got to
go
go with Marcin Tybura as well in this spot. I think that with Greg Hardy, I mean, there was obviously a learning curve. He comes from the NFL. He's obviously green. He's training at American Top Team, but he's going to develop. He's going to get better. You see that streak of wins on the regional scene, and he's just icing guys. It's like, oh, okay, he's a murderous power puncher. Then you see him come to on a Contender Series. Wait, it looks like he's got that power. He comes to the UFC, and all of a sudden he's not really a power puncher. All of a sudden now he's using that athleticism, that length, that reach. He's pacing himself a lot, and then it all comes to a halt when it turns out, yeah, he's asthmatic and he needs to use his puffer. And as a result, he doesn't have great cardio. And so what he's doing, ATT formulated a great game plan for him. He's not there anymore. He's now training with Rashad Evans on his own. But it was a great game plan where it's like, just don't exert yourself, man. Let them come to you, use your reach, and just go with a slow pace. He was able to last 3 rounds with Alexander Volkov. I mean, I think that's a feather in the cap. But in the same breath, I mean, going to decision with Ben Sassoli, who it's not like he has a cast iron chin. The Yorgan De Castro fight, it's very low output out of Hardy. And then the Moraes Green fight, I mean, yeah, he gets that KO victory, but he's just looking really tired. Now, if you're the UFC, you're paying this guy. Again, it's all coming down to salary. They made mention we're cutting 60 people, okay? With Greg Hardy's not that heavyweight that's just mauling every Francis Ngannou is going to have a task on his hands. It's like, no. He just goes through the motions and outpoints guys. And what's his salary? Base salary of 85 and 85 going up. The guy made almost $200,000 to fight the Moraes Greens of the world, to fight. All of his wins are just really low-level guys for the most part. And he hasn't looked spectacular in those outings. So I think at some point the UFC makes this guy sink or swim. They gave him the Volkov fight. He loses all 3 rounds. But again, going to decision with Volkov is pretty cool. So let's see how he develops since then. And is he making those strides? Is he making those improvements? Maybe slowly, but too slowly. Like, he's got a limited ceiling, I think, and I think people are really starting to realize that. So it's cool that he's coming off a knockout win over Moraes Green, because it gives you the idea that, like, oh yeah, the power's back, and he's going to go out there and knock out Marcin Tybura, who we've seen fold up against Felipe Lins in 59 seconds. But Tybura switched up his game completely, and that's why he's going to decision a lot more, and that's why he's won his last 3 fights. Is he's able to just kind of slow you down, bring you to a bog, and then outpoint you ever so slightly. Hardy having cardio issues to begin with, I really do see that Tybura can just tie him up, get him up against the cage, try to slow him down, and then eventually when Greg Hardy does start to fatigue, listen, Tybura is no slouch himself. He's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. He's also a much more classically trained striker and has a much better kick game. So he could definitely just outpoint him from the outside, or could definitely just outpoint him from inside the clinch. If he does take Greg Hardy to the ground, what's Greg Hardy's BJJ like off his back? Not very good. He is able to explode back up to his feet, but it takes a lot of energy out of him, right? So a couple takedowns from Tybura, and all of a sudden this guy's sucking wind again. They can't give him a puffer between rounds. He's going to be tired. I like where their head's at with that 3rd round finish prop, because, I mean, it's such a big price tag. But also with Tybura, it's like he is going to decision. I don't think you see, it's 2 fights back. I don't know why the name escapes me, because it obviously wasn't too memorable. Yeah, Maxine Grishin, of course, should have it. Maxine Grishin's a 205. He moves up to heavyweight. It's a relatively short notice fight. Maxine Grishin is completely tired and not offering him anything. And Tybura is okay with just going through the motions, securing the victory. I could see him doing the exact same thing over Greg Hardy and therefore picking up the decision victory, which is also a nice prop. Not as good as that third round finish, but decent enough. So sign me up for Marcin Tybura.
I like it. Guru, who you going with?
Yeah, man, I'm going with them. I'm going with Marcin Tybura in this one. And I just feel like he has a lot of advantages. Like they said, I think he's obviously way better on the ground if he can get it there. He's a black belt. And Greg Hardy, I mean, we haven't really seen him fight many grapplers recently. I mean, he fought some grapplers that didn't have success against him, like Dmitry Smolyakov, Juan Adams. And then, I mean, he fought Alan Crowder, who at least, took him down and was able to control him for like half a round. And then it looked like, he might have been able to win that fight, but he made that mistake because he was gassed out. Like you guys were saying, he got tired and made like a mental error, need him when he was on the ground. And, he lost by disqualification. Then we saw the fight with Ben Sassoli where he lost. It was a no contest because of the inhaler. So there's like this guy can't get out of his own way for one. But, I mean, he is fighting a lot. I mean, I guess you have to give him some credit for like changing his whole career. And it seems like he has kind of changed his life around. He's been training and fighting quite a bit, hasn't gotten in trouble. So good for him. But I just feel like when you look at just like the levels, I feel like Tybura, he's been in there with guys that are way more dangerous on the feet, like Derek Lewis, people like that. And he was like dominating the fight with Derek Lewis. He was taking him down. And then in the third round, he did get tired and get caught. But that's because Derek Lewis can, even though he gets tired, he can kind of keep that power and those blitzes. It can just catch you in that third round, man. And I don't think Greg Hardy is that type of guy, even if he does potentially get Tybura tired as well. I just feel like Tybura is going to be a little bit more seasoned, going to be able to get him against the cage when he needs to, get him tired, potentially even take him down, submit him, or hurt him on the feet, but could go to decision too. I mean, Tybura is kind of a guy that likes to kind of extend the fights out and play a slow game. So I'm definitely going to go with Tybura to get the win, though, and I feel like he should be a favorite in this fight.
I tell you what, guys, it's a great feeling when you show up on Friday night and your boys are back in the same underdog you are. I got Tybura in this one, I would honestly feel better if, it was that earlier Hardy. Like, if Hardy was the type of guy that we saw early on, like Cody was talking about, that, came out, was just explosive, getting in dudes' faces and, landing big monster KO shots. I feel like, that's probably a more likely path to victory here than the Hardy we see as of late, who goes out there a little bit plodding, a little bit slower, a little less output, a little more calculated. I mean, Marcin Tybura is the far more experienced guy at this point, and I think he's the far better kickboxer. I see Tybura just being the sharper guy, more output, landing more strikes, avoiding the danger. Cody, you said that you thought this had a good chance to go to decision. I think so too, man. I think Tybura might just kind of, avoid the danger spots of Greg Hardy, keep it clean, and just kind of cruise in this one. At the same time, Guru, you brought up a good point, man. Tybura takes Hardy down. Hardy's got big problems, and I think that's a very likely outcome. So I don't know if I'm going to hit any over, any under. I think the unanimous decision here for Tybura. I mean, all three of you guys are on him. I'm on him too. Ooh, that's going to make it tough for me not to have a little something on Marcin Tybura this week. So I like it. We are up to, we're almost there. We got Marlon Moraes going up against Rob Font. And I believe, Cody, you get us going on this one.
Yeah, it's a fun fight, and it's another fight that I think that the underdog's probably live. With Rob Font, here's the one question mark. Like, earlier in the week, again, these are the type of fights that make you think lots. Earlier in the week, it's like, geez, Rob Font's he's gonna be able to give him some serious problems, and he might be live for a late finish. Like a third round finish, Rob Font is like plus 1,600 or something. But beyond that, it's like Marlon Moraes, for a guy that used to routinely fight 5 rounds in World Series of Fighting, his cardio just isn't there anymore. Now, call it whatever you want. You can call it USADA. You can call it damage. You can call it getting ready for 3-round fights as opposed. You can call it, burning himself out in the first round because he always looks phenomenal in the first round. But his great streak of success is knocking guys out in the first round. Beyond that, he just gets fatigued and he allows his opponents to dictate the pace. Rob Font's an excellent striker. He's fought in many of excellent strikers and generally gives a good account of himself. His ground game is also massively improved. I believe he is a BJJ black belt now. And it's like I could see him definitely posing some problems for Marlon Moraes. He's got to keep the fight standing because Marlon Moraes is going to have the superior wrestling, and I could see Marlon taking him down and controlling him a little bit. But as far as the fight stays standing, Marlon's output's just not there anymore. He's really crisp. He's really clean. He can work your body. He's got a nasty hook. He's got big power in his hands. but he can kind of let the volume get away from him sometimes. And maybe Rob Font could do that. But then ultimately, Rob Font's been off for like over a year with an ACL injury, right? And so he's coming back from getting his knee done. There's a long layoff. I don't know if his cardio is going to be there. I don't know if his timing is going to be there. I don't know how sharp he's going to be. And Marlon Moraes just got drubbed 2 months ago by Corey Sandhagen. Is that a problem? Well, it is a problem because he just took a lot of damage 2 months ago. But in that same breath, it's like timing won't be an issue. You know, like he just recently competed. I would assume that if he was jumping back in the spot, you know, he is obviously healthy. He seemed to be in good shape. So, yeah, you know, is Rob Font a live underdog? Yes, definitely. But we've talked about so many live underdogs on this card already. I don't know that I'm going to go fully on Font anymore. Like, I think it might be falling back into like past territory for myself. Competitive, close. I would say dog or pass. Therefore, I would go with the underdog, Rob Font. But again, very close fight. And it's not even like he's a huge underdog by no stretch. It is a pretty lined appropriately.
Sure. Guru, who do you like?
Yeah, I'm going with Magic Marlon in this one. And this isn't a super confident pick either because, like Cody said, I'm just kind of down on, you know, the way he's been fighting recently where after the first round, he definitely just doesn't look like the same fighter. But just with Rob Font, if you look at him historically, I mean, whenever he's taking this big step up in competition, he's tend to, you know, lose and not really be that competitive in the fights. Like with Pedro Munoz, he got finished in that one. He fought Rafael Sansao and kind of got dominated in that fight, got dropped and then out-grappled. And even in his fight with I can't remember, my bad, but even in his in one of his other fights, he lost again when he was fighting John Lineker. John Lineker, he kind of got dominated in that fight as well. But I mean, I feel like Rob Font, he's just he's a really good boxer, and you know, he's pretty athletic. He can move around, but he's an older guy too, and I just don't think he's going to be adding a lot to his style. I don't think he's as dynamic as Marlon is. So I just feel like if Marlon can you know, attack that lead leg and kind of start to beat it up and slow down Rob Font, I think that he could just potentially either pot shot his way to a victory, or there's always that chance that Marlon gets that first round knockout. But I just think he's going to be, you know, too dynamic for Rob Font, be able to kind of just, you know, dominate the fight and just be too athletic. I don't think Rob Font is going to be able to impose his boxing in this one. If you watch his other fights, like even versus Ricky Simone, I mean, he was getting hit a lot in that fight, and Ricky Simone isn't, you know, nearly on the level of a striker as, you know, a guy like Marlon Moraes. So I just, I think Marlon Moraes should get it done here, but not as confident as I would be like, let's say if they had this fight like a year ago. So I got to go with Marlon, but yeah, no bet or any play or anything on that one.
MMA LOTN, let us know.
Yeah, this one has me a little bit stumped too because Rob Font seems to have the skills to go out there and kind of outwork and outpace Marlon Moraes, which seems to be Moraes' like downfall in his last couple fights. When guys are able to go out there and put a pressure on him, put a pace on him, and kind of just walk through his shots, they're successful. Like Henry Cejudo got his leg chewed up in that first round, but after that he kind of just said fuck it and started moving forward and started disrespecting Moraes, and luckily for him didn't get put out, so he definitely had that going for him, but he was still able to go out there and put on a good pace and pressure on Marlon Moraes and broke him there, just as Corey Sandhagen did. But I'm not thinking that Rob Font's going to go out there and be able to Corey Sandhagen Marlon Moraes here. Like, you know, we know what the good things about Sandhagen are. He throws from awkward positions and throws from weird angles and never really lets you breathe and just throws all these weird strikes, but he throws them consistently and his volume is there. Whereas Rob Font, he's a little bit more of a technical Muay Thai striker. Not really fancy with his footwork or anything crazy like that. But the one thing that kind of gives me pause in terms of betting Rob Font here is this fight with Rafael Sansao, another low output striker, but was successful in landing big shots and big damage, even dropping Rob Font a couple times in that fight, which allowed him to secure that decision victory. And that's what I think Marlon needs here. He needs to drop Font. He needs to do big things because he's not a high output guy himself. Most of his big victories have come via finish. So if he's not able to go out there and finish Rob Font in that first round and a half or so, is he going to be able to bank that second round or that first round and get a judge's decision? I'm not sure. I feel like I can trust Rob Font a little bit more here. But even with that said, there's the ACL injury that you got to worry about. There's a time off that you got to worry about. The huge step up in competition. Like, I think a lot of people are going out there and disrespecting Marlon Moraes because he's in a little bit of a rough patch. Like, yeah, he had that Jose Aldo win, but that's sandwiched in between the Henry Cejudo and Corey Sandhagen beatings, right? Maybe there's a lot of that baked into this line as well too. So I don't really have the greatest of read on this fight, but I'm gonna lean Rob Font. just due to his ability to win a decision. I feel like he will be a little bit more a high output year, as long as he's possibly able to like check those leg kicks of Marlon, not get knocked out. That's a big ask here against Magic Moraes, who has a lot of power in his hands too, and his kicks and his knees, as we obviously know. But yeah, I'll still go with Font to win this fight via decision. The spot that I do like the most, I will say, the over 2.5 minus 117. I think that's not too bad of a spot. But again, if it does go to a decision, there's a damn good chance that Rob Font could get his hand raised. So I'll go with Font here to win this fight via decision.
Whoo, tough fight. Yep. I mean, very close fight in my mind. You know, you guys pretty much laid it out, right? Marlon Moraes, super dangerous, super deadly early on, man. First round KO. It's a very real possibility. Rob Font, I like what he's doing. I like what we're seeing out of this guy. This is a guy who I feel like is elevating his game every time we see him, but we saw him one time in the last year. We saw him one time in the year before that. Why this guy that's getting up there in age, we're talking 32, almost 33 years old. You know, these guys don't have a long shelf life. Why the inactivity? I don't know if it's injuries. Well, we know it's injuries for this last layoff, right? But I don't like it, man. I want to see him in there. But at the same time, Marlon Moraes, a guy that, you know, Cody, you touched on, man, whether it be USADA or whether it be age, whether it be who knows what, this guy just does not have what it takes to make it into the third round, really. I mean, first round, great, explosive, deadly. Second round, output waning, beginning to fade. Third round, he's just like there, just there to be hit. You know what I mean? And I feel like, man, that could be the story of this fight. I like Rob Font. You know, I think he's got phenomenal hands, and I think he's going to be able to touch Marlon up. I will say this. It's a very close fight. I'm going to end up taking the dog in Font, but I feel like this is one of those spots that could be a potential good live bet. Marlon, we know, is going to come out hot. He's going to look great, but I will say this. If it's a very close first round, it looks like Font's getting the timing, like he's warming up, and Marlon's not really hurting him, really blowing him out. Even if Marlon is really hurting him, but you think Font's still going to be there, man, you could end up getting Rob Font at very good plus money, and then we watch Rob Font kind of kick it into gear, potentially win that second, potentially win that third. I don't know. It all depends on how the fight's playing out, right? But give me the dog and Rob Font on this one. So we are cruising. It's the co-main event. Oh, wait, not quite. I almost jumped the gun there. We still got one more crazy, crazy fight to talk about before we're up to that point. Michel Pereira versus Khaos Williams. Guru, you want to get us going?
Yeah, man. How could you almost forget about this one? I mean, fuck. This
I don't know. How do I almost jump that one?
This is a crazy fight, though, right here. I mean, this is another fight, though, that, I mean, some people are super confident on one side and super confident on the other side, and I'm not one of those guys, man. I mean, to me, I mean, this is a fight that, you sit back and you watch it and you have fun, like, with what the craziness is going to happen because, I'm just not super confident on either side. I mean, Pereira, he's obviously going to be way more experienced than Khaos Williams. I mean, he has a lot more fights, and he's a guy that, moves around, and he's going to be trying to, be dynamic, do his thing, the flips and everything probably. But Khaos Williams, I mean, it's a fun fight because, like, they have completely different contrasted styles and personalities, right? It's like one guy's, like, coming in, like, mean mugging you, and then Michel's dancing to the octagon. And even their styles, it's like Khaos is kind of meat and potatoes type of style. But I don't know. I mean, I watched Michel's fight with Dusko Todorovic, and when he got hit by a jab, he kind of shelled up. And that's the only time he's ever been finished, so it's hard to say he has, like, durability issues. But I just feel like Khaos maybe is going to be the tougher guy at the end of it type thing. That's what I'm going to go with. But, I mean, would I be shocked if Pereira went in here and, put a clinic on him, moving around and just dominated him? I mean, not really. I mean, we've only seen two really short fights for Khaos Williams in the UFC. And, in the regional scene, I think me and Lock of the Night were saying it last time. And shout out to Cody because he had that good pick with him against Razak. But I wasn't super impressed with, a lot of his regional scene fights. So maybe he'll regress to that. But, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to go with Khaos Williams. But like I said, I mean, not super confident.
Lock of the Night. Who you going with in this crazy matchup?
If Guru's saying that Khaos Williams is meat and potatoes, what the hell is Michel Pereira? Is he the stuffing The green bean casserole, the cranberry sauce. Is that what he is? Because that's how he fucking fights. The guy goes out there and throws spinning shit like crazy. But luckily for him, he kind of learned his lesson in that Tristan Connolly fight. Yeah, he missed weight in that fight. And yeah, he looked horrible after that first round of just, putting on a dance recital and missing everything and not really hitting anything on Tristan Connolly and seeing Connolly get the decision victory. I think that really changed it for him. In the Diego Santos fight, we saw a little bit more of a measured approach. Yeah, he's still going out there and throwing these spinning shit, but he's not wasting his gas tank or anything like that. He's showing a little bit more of a measured approach, as chaotic of a measured approach as you can say as well. And even in his last fight against Lima Madaev, he looked great in that fight. Didn't really take any damage. I'm not sure how much of that was Madaev kind of breaking and saying, okay, there's no way I can catch this guy. I'm just going to just wait for my opportunities. And those opportunities are going to be few and far in between. And there's no way I'm going to win a decision here. So I got to go out there and try to knock this guy out. And that didn't even work out for him either. So I like the progression that we're seeing from Pereira. And the fact that he has 3 times the amount of experience of Khaos Williams here too, I think that definitely gives him a bit of an advantage as well. He must have seen a guy or two that's kind of like Khaos Williams in his career. I mean, a guy that just relies on power and tries to get the finish, right? Michel, I feel like I can depend on him a little bit more here in terms of winning over 15 minutes rather than just hoping for that one kill shot that Khaos is going to need here. I don't really think that we've seen much from Khaos in his regional scene to say that, okay, he should be able to go out there and outpoint and out-cardio Pereira here. I feel like Pereira, I think Cody even brought this up in our show yesterday, Pereira's best path to victory, just take this guy down in that first round. And then in that second and third round, just start doing your spinning shit and maybe something will land. But get that power out of Khaos's hands first and then start to do your work and then start to do your crazy shit. The spot that I do like, though, because I do feel like we might see some hesitancy here from either guy and we might not see the cleanest shot hit. The over 1.5 at -120 is not too bad of a spot. You're talking about 7.5 minutes of hoping out neither of these guys go out, right? It's crazy to think in a fight like this, Khaos Williams and freaking Michel Pereira, that's something you're actually going to see. But yeah, I could absolutely see them, just throwing spinning shit and not really landing anything crazy. But I do like Pereira to win this fight. I want to say decision, to be honest. I think he could just do this for 15 minutes, kind of dance around Khaos and maybe not see a finish because we don't know the durability of Khaos either. He hasn't been finished. You know what I mean? So what is his chin like? If he lands something crazy, if Pereira actually lands something crazy on Khaos here, is he going to go out? We don't know. So I'm more comfortable here with Pereira to win via decision, but the over 1.5 is not too bad of a spot either.
I like it. Cody Saftic, hit us with that insight, my man.
Well, seeing how we're all talking about food, I would say Michel Pereira is more like a tuna casserole. You just can't quite trust it, right? But it could be good, but I don't know for sure. He does seem to have legitimate skills, right? It's just, it's lost in the mix and the showmanship and the entertainment. And, one thing I don't like about him is when he does interviews, he's very much like, I don't care if I lose. And he has 11 pro losses, right? He wants to put on a show. And so that's not great when you're banking in with actual money. The Tristan Connolly fight, no big deal, because again, I saw the writing on the wall there, but he had missed weight and he was largely complaining his body was shutting down. He didn't have a corner man. Since then, the Dhiego Sanchez fight gets himself DQ'd, but his cardio carried through. I mean, in the third round, he was mauling him. He could have legitimately got a clean finish had he not thrown the illegal knee, but his cardio really did come through, and it was a good, strong weight cut for him. And then he follows that up with the Lima Madaev fight. Lima Madaev turned out to be a fraud, but, he was touted as a beat 2.0. He was supposed to be really sharp technical, good striking, good technical boxing, and Michel Pereira just mauled him. He beat him in the striking exchanges when at the end of the fight, did he tap, did he not tap? Doesn't matter. What does matter is Michel Pereira just tosses him to the ground effortlessly. When he takes him to the ground, he chokes him out. His grappling is good. His wrestling is more based on strength than actual technique, but it's solid enough because he's such a big, strong guy. How he makes 170, who knows, man? He used to fight at 185. He used to fight at 205. He's even fought as high as 220. He is a big, strong, imposing guy. And so with Khaos Williams, we all believe he's got this, quote unquote, the death touch. This guy touches you, you are going out. But truthfully, you've seen him fight for like 30 seconds in both of his fights combined. Well, not combined, but you know what I mean? Like 30 seconds at a time. So beyond that, does the death touch carry to the second round? Does it carry to the third round? We've seen this guy go to the second and third round a few times against lesser competition, and the power didn't translate. It's that he comes to the UFC and he sparks Morono and it's badass, and then he goes out there and he follows it up with the win over Al Hassan and it was badass, and now he's just the flavor of the day. And besides, his name is Khaos the Ox Fighter Williams. Like, you're betting against this guy? Hells no. It just seems like everybody's really behind him, but he's still got a ways to prove. I mean, some of his fights on the regional scene, the Jeremy Holloway fight, he looks good, but not great. And then namely the Tony Hervey fight does not look good at all. And it's not that long ago. And so here's the other problem, right? Pereira can finish you early, but he's also going out there and getting 3 rounds of experience and getting, he goes hard with Dhiego and he shows you something. He goes hard with Zalimandayev, fights all the way through, looks strong all the way through, and shows you something. With Khaos Williams, when you see him fight a year ago and you say, oh, he's made a ton of improvements, probably has, but he hasn't been able to exhibit them because he's only fighting for like 30 seconds at a time, at least as far as his 2 UFC fights go. So if Pereira's smart, and by the way, he's not, he'll probably throw a backflip instead of shooting a takedown, but he should shoot a takedown. He should go out there and try to neutralize this guy, at least for the first round. And once you tire him out, and once you put some blood in those muscles, then all of a sudden that jab's not as quick, and it's not as accurate. And that counter right hand, not quite there. And the power, maybe not there. And Michel Pereira, you don't got to worry about him gassing out because he's shown in his last couple fights. I mean, he looks strong all the way through. So I do think he's got more. What's the path of victory for Khaos Williams? Chin check this guy. He leaves you a lot of openings. Catch him. What's the path of victory for Michel Pereira? Okay, well, he could also chin check you. He can smash you with the flying knee. He's got good technical, his hands are pretty good. His takedowns, he's probably the better wrestler. He's got a better grappling game. His cardio probably is going to be an advantage, so he can take you into deeper waters. He's got multiple paths to victory. But what's baked in it is that he could be winning a few rounds and then get himself disqualified or do something stupid or run off the cage and just, I don't know. Like, that's all baked into the price. But he's shown you something. He's a 30-fight veteran, right? There's way more that you can go off of, and you see those improvements. Whereas with Khaos Williams, it's just a less of a pint size. It's cool to get behind the guy with the quick knockouts, but don't forget Tanner Bozer knocked out 2 guys, and everyone's like, this guy's got power. It's like, but does he? But does he have power, or was he matched up? It's 2 good spots. I think Khaos Williams got power, but is he the heaviest hitter in the division? Is he going to spark out my boy Pereira in the first round? Like that, I'm not so sure about. So I've got Pereira. I can see the Pereira by decision. But beyond that, Locke actually brought it up. The over 1.5 is like -130. And you're going to have to probably change your pants after the over hits. But, dude, it's going to be flying knees and bombinos coming from left field up until that over 2.5 hits. And then you can breathe a sigh of relief. But both guys have the capability. One guy's name's Khaos, and the other guy, Pereira, quite literally is Khaos. So it's fun matchmaking. It's awesome. I think the UFC did a great job by matching these 2 guys up together. But I'm going to have to go with lean with Pereira for the nod.
All right. Yeah, man, I'm taking Michel Pereira as well. I do feel like when you look at the tape, at least what we have on Khaos Williams, and I got to tell you guys what, Khaos Williams in the UFC and Khaos Williams pre-UFC, kind of a different guy. The Khaos we've seen in the UFC, albeit 2 30-second snippets, is a guy who's loaded with adrenaline and can just ice you in one single shot. If you give him that opportunity, he'll take it, he'll land it. That's the end of the story. But Cody, you talked about it, man. What is Khaos Williams going to look like 3 minutes into the first round of the octagon? What's he going to look like in that second round, third round in the octagon? And that we just don't know. We know Michel Pereira, when he's not, triple backflip, double handspring into the octagon, he can go a solid 3. And I'm gonna lean Michel Pereira. Like I said, I do think he is the better mixed martial artist here. But at the same time, guys, if he's laying unconscious 45 seconds into this fight, am I going to be surprised? Not at all. Khaos Williams, man, he's just been a freak so far. I do think it comes to an end here. Like I said, though, man, what a dangerous fight. I will say this. It has come to my attention that some books offer a fight of the night prop. I think you're crazy if your book offers this, that you don't put a little something sprinkled on that one, because this fight has fight of the night, fight of the month, fight of the year. This could be a serious bomb. And, boy, I tell you what, here's one thing that I'm pretty sure. I don't think we see the scorecards in this one. So we're rolling. We've done it. Now we've made it to the co-main event. It's a great one. We got Jose Aldo going up against Marlon Vera. Locke, I need your assistance. Who's up on this one?
I'll take the reins here. I'll take the reins here because I love Jose Aldo in this spot. I absolutely love him, man. I think there is a ton of recency bias here once again on Jose Aldo. I see people out there comparing Chito Vera and Petr Yan. How are you still alive? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand that comparison at all. Or even Chito Vera and Max Holloway. Yeah, I mean, I don't see those comparisons at all. Like, the only people that Jose Aldo is losing to is high-level championship contenders at this point in time. The only guy that wasn't a UFC champion, Marlon Moraes, who was just knocking on the door of a championship as well, right? Jose Aldo coming down to 135 pounds. This, I believe, is going to be his third fight there now. He's looked good. Like his cardio, obviously, in a 5-round fight, we know it's never 100% there. Not like his early UFC career where he was going 5 rounds with Chad Mendes in a fight of the decade type of performance. But like now, when he's reaching these third, fourth, and fifth rounds, it gets a little bit harder for him. However, in that third round against Marlon Moraes, he was the one coming forward the entire time. He was like, I do think he lost that round, but the fact that he was still coming forward the entire time, landing big shots and not really kind of sucking wind or looking for a way out like he did in the Max Holloway fight and stuff like that. I think he's still all there, and it can still show the high technical capabilities that he has to go out there and dismantle these guys. He had that huge win over Renato Moicano and Jeremy Stevens after losing to Max Holloway twice in a row, and you could truly see it in his expression. Like the guy was like absolutely just flabbergasted that he actually finally got the victory and that he was finally able to get his hand raised. Like, he loves the sport. He can still do it. He has like a chain of burger restaurants in Brazil now. So he has his side business and his side hustle going on, but he's still 100% committed and focused on MMA, it seems. So for him, this fight is kind of like it's truly the fight that we get to see whether Jose Aldo still has it and whether he can still compete in that top 5 to top 7 range. Right now, I think this is too much for Chito Vera to truly bite off. Like, I think this is not the spot for him. People want to put a lot of stock into that Sugar Shane O'Malley fight or Sugar Sean O'Malley fight. But if you really watch that fight, like O'Malley was controlling that entire fight up until the point that Vera realized that his foot was hurt. After he realized that, that's where we saw Chito start to go after and really start to put work on and eventually get O'Malley out of there. But Chito Vera, being a slow starter, you don't want to be a slow starter against a guy like Jose Aldo. The guy gets going. His leg kicks, people want to say we haven't seen them since his WEC days. I saw them in the Petr Yan fight. He forced Petr Yan to change stances. He made Petr Yan for the majority of that fight out of his secondary stance for that fight because he beat up that lead leg so well. Unfortunately for Jose Aldo, though, Petr Yan is just as good out of his secondary stance as he is in his first stance, right? I don't know if Marlon Vera would be able to do that, though. I think he's going to be a little bit more compromised trying to fight out of that secondary stance if we do see those leg kicks out of Jose Aldo just as we did in his last fight. And I still think he has power in his hands. Like the guy, his body shots are menacing. They're mean. Like the way he's been hurting Jeremy Stevens and Renato Moicano with these punches, I think he's going to hurt Vera. And people are going to go out there and throw that fact that Marlon Vera hasn't even been finished yet. You know what I mean? In the UFC. He hasn't fought Jose Aldo. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't fought that. You got to fight a guy that's going to bring that out of you. And I think Jose Aldo is going to intimidate the hell out of Chito Vera here. People can say all they want about Chito being a tough guy and kind of just taking everything that's thrown at him. But Jose Aldo is a different monster. He's a different aura. Stepping into the cage is just going to be completely different for Chito. So, again, people can say what they want about Jose Aldo falling off a cliff, but I still think that even if he's falling off a cliff, he's still high enough to go out there and beat a guy like Chito Vera. And the fact that this is still better than minus 200 is beyond me. I don't know. Maybe you guys can talk some sense into me here, but I truly think that Jose Aldo absolutely dominates this fight. I don't think that Chito Vera finishes him in the third round, even if Jose Aldo slows down. I don't think he's that good of a finisher. So I think even if Jose Aldo makes it to the third round, personally, I think Jose Aldo knocks him out. So I like that plus 555 Aldo via KO prop. That's the spot that I'm going to be sprinkling on here. But I think that Vera could absolutely outstrike, Aldo can outstrike Vera here, probably finish him in the first or second round. But even if this doesn't reach the third round, what I've seen in his prior third rounds, or at least in his Marlon Moraes fight and the Petr Yan fight, leads me to believe that Marlon Vera is not going to be able to get this guy out of there in that third round. So I like Aldo here all day. Whether this hits the scorecards, I think he wins the first 2 rounds, but I do think that he has the chop still to go out there and put away Marlon Vera with a nasty body shot and then just follow up with some punches. But I like that TKO prop at plus 555 for my guy Jose Aldo.
Nice. Cody Saftic, who you liking?
You know what? I don't think you can bank all the way on Jose Aldo as just like a lock play. Like I think that he's got a certain chance to win this fight. He probably does win that first round against Marlon Vera, who always gives up first rounds. If he wins the second round and he's not able to get finished in the third round, then he wins this fight. But again, we're falling to this lure of just like we keep betting on these age legends, or at least we consider betting on these age legends, whether it be the Shogun Huas of the world or the OSPs of the world or anybody you see every card every week. It's just like it's another round of guys that are probably on the chopping block. And last week, we like Tony Ferguson. Do we not like Tony Ferguson? Oh, sure, he's 36 years old. And sure, he's taken a bunch of damage in his last fight, but he fights the best guys. He's Tony Ferguson. But it's like, no, man, we're all falling for the same thing. I'm guilty as well. I was on Tony Ferguson. I brought up the reference of Benson Henderson fighting in Bellator. He's getting some love. These guys they're not at that level, right? or anymore. They were certainly. Jose Aldo looks tremendous, but yeah, the Peter Yan fight. One problem with being Jose Aldo is it's a good thing. It's a blessing and a curse, right? The refs give you a chance to fight back. The curse is that the refs give you too much of a chance to fight back. He's getting drubbed by Max Holloway. He's getting drubbed by Peter Yan. They allow these fights to go too long. He takes a tremendous amount of damage. How he rebounds and comes into this fight is anybody's guess. Then beyond that, when he made 135 against Marlon Moraes, I was shocked. This guy struggled to make 145. How's he going to make 135? But he looked great. And then furthermore, the Peter Yan fight, him on the scales, oof, he looked great. Today he looked deflated. Today he looked tired. Today he didn't look like he had a good weight cut. And it's understandable because he's a massive guy who's getting older, who just took a lot of damage in his last fight. So writing's most definitely on the wall for him. What I do think his advantages, though, is that Marlon Vera always gives you the first round. So if you're Aldo, it's only a 3-round fight. You win the first round, it's a confidence booster, right? If this guy's on your ass right from the get-go, kind of breaks you, kind of hurts you, kind of stings you early, maybe you start to fatigue. Maybe you don't find that rhythm. Maybe you don't find that confidence. But if he gives you the first round and you're Jose Aldo, now you know, I just got to fight him competitively for another round at the very least, and I can secure this decision. Now, talking about Jose Aldo going out there and smoking Marlon Vera out, like, no, I disagree with that as well. I disagree with that because it's not only that Cheeto hasn't been finished, it's not only that Cheeto has just got, good durability, but he's fought guys like John Lineker, right? He's been in there before. So I would honestly have to say that he's got a solid advantage as far as being able to take some of that damage. So I got fight goes the distance minus 170. And, I would say Jose Aldo, but I would chase that Jose Aldo by decision to get a plus money play on it instead of 150.
Are you live? Because they said
I like it. Guru, I know who you got, but let us know anyway.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm definitely going to go with Aldo in this one. But like Cody said, I mean, I am a little bit worried because I do think, like, when you look at Aldo in his last fight, and, I think this too, he looked really good in that fight with Pereira. It was, one of the better Aldos that we've seen in a while. But that was a title fight. I mean, he was right there. He could have been a 2-division champion. And he kind of took a lot of damage in that 5th round. And I just want to see how he's going to, bounce back again. Because he already kind of did this a couple times where he, lost the title against Conor. Then he won it again against Frankie. Then he had to bounce back, win a couple of those fights. And then, I mean, how many times is he going to be able to theoretically do that? So I am kind of worried about that. But just like if you look at it on paper, I feel like you have to, favor Aldo. I mean, I feel like on the feet, he's going to be way cleaner of a striker. I mean, you see, like, he throws these combinations with no fat on him, like right down the middle, like really clean. And I feel like he's just going to be on a different level on the feet than Vera, especially early. Because like they said, Vera does tend to kind of start slow and give up that first round. So, I mean, unless Vera can go out there and really start to put damage on Aldo and, make him, get taken out in that 3rd round, I just feel like he's going to be able to get too much of a lead early on. I don't think he's going to finish Vera necessarily, though, because, I mean, man, we've seen Vera take a lot of damage, even in the fight with, Lineker and Song Yadong, who's another guy that's, a pretty big power hitter. He was able to eat the shots there, but like Locke said, I do think he does kind of like have like a stance where he stands kind of tall. So if the body shots start to accumulate, maybe that could be a way Aldo could get him out of there. But I think that Aldo's just going to be able to use his striking early to put enough damage on Vera that he can kind of cruise to a decision, even if he drops that 3rd round. So I think Aldo is going to be able to get this one done. But man, I mean, 3 losses in a row, this is kind of a, make or break fight for him. If he loses this fight, I mean, I don't necessarily think the UFC would cut a guy like Aldo, but it would be interesting. I mean, I don't like losing to Vera is a big step down from losing to guys like Pereira. So, I mean, it's a huge fight for Aldo. So he definitely has to win this one, but I'm going to roll with him one more time here.
Woo! This is a tough fight to pick. I mean, I agree with everything you guys said on both sides, right? Like, Aldo, the resume, incredible. Initially I wasn't a fan of Aldo coming down to 135. Like Cody said, man, this guy was having tough cuts to 145. I said to myself, how is a guy who's now so much older going to make this cut to 135? Well, he does it somehow. And honestly, I've been impressed. I think that Marlon Moraes fight, I bet Marlon Moraes in that fight. I'm not so sure Moraes won that fight, man. That was very close. Aldo gave a great showing of himself. I thought Aldo looked very, very good in the Petter-Yan fight up until we hit championship rounds. We don't have to worry about that here. Vera, the guy's never been finished, right? Tough as nails guy. I'm having a really tough time figuring out who's going to win this fight. I just feel like both guys I can see winning. I feel like it's close to a 50-50. But, man, Cody, I think your point about, we hang on to some of these guys a little too long. Here's what's mind-blowing to me. Jose Aldo is only 33 years old. I swear I've been watching this guy fight in MMA for 15 years, all the way back to WEC. But I have. He was a very young dude back then. Still only 33 years old, but my goodness. Shop worn, there's a very real possibility. The guy has only fought the killers of killers for the last 10 years. It's been nothing but greatness. Champions or, title contenders or former champions. Jose Aldo, a true future Hall of Famer. That being said, we're here to pick winners, right? I'm going to take Vera pretty much basically only because he's plus money underdog here at this point. If Aldo was bringing those leg kicks a little more, I know he threw a few on Pereira, but I wish we could have seen more. Man, I just think it's a very tough fight. I'm gonna take Vera in this one, but my goodness, you guys, I'm just not very confident. I think it's gonna have to be a pass for me. Although I feel very tempted to bet it. Here's where I think could be the angle, though. I do have a feeling this fight hits the over and probably goes to the judges' scorecards. Aldo, tough as nails guy. Vera, never been finished. I'll take it, probably going to the decision. So here we go. The main event, the last fight that we are going to break down in this year of 2020. Let's make it a good one, boys. We've got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson going up against Geoff Hands of Steel Neal. Cody Saftic, you want to get us going?
Yeah, fun fight. Hell of a headliner to cap things off. I know people were really upset with seeing missing out on Leon Edwards versus Khamzat Chimaev, but one of them's going to be a grappling heavy fight, a good fight, but lots of grappling. And now we get a Striker's Delight as your main event. With Geoff Neal, it's like certainly he's got that power. Hands of Steel for a reason, and he cracks. But again, you go to level of competition, is defeating Nico Price is a nice little win, but knocks him out very quickly. And then the Mike Perry fight, he looks like a savage. But again, it is Mike Perry. We've seen the regression of Mike Perry. We've seen the limited skill set of Mike Perry. So those wins are all good. They're all building blocks. It looks like Geoff Neal's coming to his own. Again, another Force MMA guy. But it's just like the year-long layoff, the health troubles, the canceled fights, the time off. Like either he comes back as a refined, improved version of himself, or we still have those question marks. He hasn't really fought those top-level guys. We've seen time and time again. On the other side, it's just the best guys, the best level of opposition being able to fight. Stephen Thompson is that guy. I don't want to call him a gatekeeper, but realistically at this point, if you want to get into that top echelon, you end up having to fight this guy. If you want a title fight, you end up having to fight this guy. And he gives everybody really competitive fights. And it's not like he's one of these guys that's shop worn and done at 37, because you've seen the Vicente Luque fights. Like he's still got a great skill set. He's still more than capable. And I think that he's got a good chance here to just come and dance around Geoff Neal, bank some of those rounds. What I don't like is it's 5 rounds. There's going to be more than enough opportunity for Geoff Neal to land something. And we have seen with Stephen Thompson hurt by Tyron Woodley multiple times. He was hurt by Darren Till. We have seen him knocked out by Anthony Pettis, who's a natural 155er. So there is still that idea that like Thompson in a 5-round fight, he could be looking really good and then at some point get caught by something. We've also seen guys that don't play his game and don't just try to bum rush him. Then they allow him to try to be the aggressor. Then they're able to catch him, right? So part of me says with Geoff Neal, he is an aggressive type guy. He is going to be going forward. He's going to try to mix it up with Stephen Thompson. It should play into Stephen Thompson's hands, right? But again, if Geoff Neal decides to just wait back and allows Thompson to dictate the pace, maybe he catches him. I got to say that ever so slightly, I'm going to leave with Stephen Thompson. I'm going to go with Stephen Thompson probably, I want to say by decision, but with Neal's cardio, it did look really good against Belal Muhammad on the regional scene against Kevin Holland, his lone loss, or his last loss anyways. Didn't look good. Has he shored up those improvements? Is being in a hospital bed sick? Is that good for training? Is he going to be in career best shape? Looks good on the scales, but again, there's question marks there. So I'm going to go with Thompson. I'm going to take the over 2.5 anyways, probably over 3.5. And just hope that gut feeling that he gets caught later in the fight is not real.
I like it. Guru, hit us with that final prediction of the year.
Yeah, man. Like you said, this is a great fight to end the year. Really good main event. And it's like, if Geoff Neal wins this fight, like you said, it's kind of like a gatekeeper status for Stephen Thompson, where he'll probably get like I don't know if he'll get a title shot, but he'll definitely get like a huge fight in his next one. But I'm worried about, the thing I'm worried about with Geoff Neal is just like you were saying with this heart and all that. I'm not really sure how that's going to, affect him or how that affected his training or anything. But I'm actually leaning towards more towards Geoff Neal getting the win here. I just feel like Thompson, I mean, he's really good. He has that great style that he uses, and it's really hard for a lot of people to get a beat on it. But I just think Geoff Neal, I think he's gonna come in with that game plan to attack the leg and kind of be patient. And I just really like the way Geoff Neal closes the distance, his explosiveness, his speed, and I just feel like he's gonna catch Stephen Thompson and hurt him and maybe knock him out or just hurt him a couple times and do enough to win a decision. I don't think he's gonna go in there and be dumb. I think he's gonna have a good game plan with Saif Saud and everyone at 47 May and all that. So I think that he's going to be able to kind of cut off Thompson and then let his shots go. And I just think if he lands, I think that he has enough power to maybe even put Thompson out. I mean, we've seen him dropped in 4 of his last 6 fights to get knocked out by Anthony Pettis. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, Geoff Neal just couldn't get a beat on it and Stephen Thompson wins the decision. But I'm just going to go with the younger guy, the guy that I think is more athletic. And I just think Geoff Neal is pretty good, man. I think that he can close that distance and land. I mean, Vicente Luque was landing quite a bit on Stephen Thompson. And I just feel like Geoff Neal is just a little bit better of a striker, a little bit cleaner, more accurate. So I'm going to go with Geoff Neal. I just think he'll potentially be able to get that knockout in this one.
There you go. Lock of the night. Hit us with that finale.
Yeah, no, I love Wonderboy Thompson here, and it kind of hurts for me to say that because I'm a big 47 MMA guy. I love everything that they're doing down there, and Geoff Neal is definitely one of their brightest prospects. But this is a very, very tough fight for Geoff Neal, in my opinion. It's going to be the first time he's fighting anybody like this. I mean, other than Kevin Holland, who's a little bit awkward and wacky in his own sense, but Wonderboy Thompson has that little bit more of a refined karate background and karate style that he brings to the game. The thing is, like, I kind of compared this yesterday to the Holly Holm and Irene Aldana fight, where you have a grizzled vet, proven vet in Holly Holm and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and then you have the young up and comer in Irene Aldana, who obviously skill for skill, Geoff Neal obviously blows her out of the water, but I'm just trying to use it as a comparison, as a mold in terms of what kind of fight that we should be expecting here. We saw Holly Holm go out there and have a very fantastic performance, absolutely just beat Irene Aldana from minute 1 to minute 25. And I'm expecting kind of the similar thing here with Stephen Thompson, who in his last fight arguably looked the best he's ever looked in the UFC, knocking down Vicente Luque a couple times, having a lot of success on the feet, having a lot of success in terms of maintaining the distance too. I think the size here, we obviously saw it at the stare downs and weigh-ins as well. The size difference is a little bit bigger than I initially expected, which obviously works in Wonderboy Thompson's favor. How much? Probably not by a huge margin, but obviously still an advantage for him. Now, Geoff Neal's fight with Kevin Holland, I saw a lot of things in there that made it iffy for Geoff Neal. Like, it was hard for him to really get into the range and really get his punches and his combinations going because Kevin Holland was doing such a good job of just kicking in, keeping him out of range and keeping that distance. There were a couple times where Geoff Neal was able to get him down, but Kevin Holland obviously back to his feet. Wonderboy Thompson, again, kind of hard to take down and even harder to keep down. So more often than not, he's going to be on his feet as well. So I don't think we'll see a grappling heavy approach from Geoff Neal here. I think with Wonderboy Thompson, he will be able to get his karate off. And I think that's going to kind of stifle and frustrate Geoff Neal here to the extent that he might start to guess. He might start throwing at air and really start to kind of discredit himself and start to talk himself down from thinking that he could win this fight. And I think Wonderboy Thompson is just a master of that, is kind of just making guys look dumb, making guys look stupid, kind of just throwing at air. And that's why I like the late finish here for Thompson, who should have the cardio advantage. He's been 5 rounds a couple times. The Anthony Pettis knockout, I'm going to just chalk that up as an anomaly. Like, once in a while, it's going to freaking happen. I mean, he didn't expect a jumping off the cage Superman punch to put him out, and it absolutely did. Here with Geoff Neal, he's going to have to land a very solid and clean combination, but I think it's going to be very hard here against Wonderboy Thompson. Now, the smaller cage might have a little bit of an effect on Wonderboy's ability to move and get out of the way, but I don't think it's going to be too big of a factor where we see, Geoff Neal land the perfect punch and actually take Wonderboy Thompson out here. So the spot that I do like, I already have a bet on Wonderboy Thompson at plus 100. I love that spot. And then I also like that round 4 and round 5 prop for him, plus 1850 and plus 2650, where we see Geoff Neal start to question himself, start to get demotivated, and get knocked out here by Wonderboy Thompson. So even though Wonderboy is 38 years old, he's getting up there in age, and the last thing to normally go for fighters is the power. So now here Thompson is kind of relying on his reflexes and his speed, which is what normally goes away with the age. But we saw him look amazing in the Vicente Luque fight. You know what I mean? So if anything, we didn't see any signs of him slowing down here. Now, Geoff Neal could absolutely, take out the veteran here, but I'm actually more confident in the Wonderboy Thompson side here. So I'll go with Thompson via late KO, and I love him at that plus 100 range as well.
Well, I'm with you, Locke. I'm taking Wonderboy Thompson myself. You guys covered it, right? Wonderboy, the gatekeeper status. Unfortunately, it's the truth. He never laid his hands on that UFC gold. He came ever so close, but at this point, man, I don't think he ever will. An aging guy. He's getting up there, almost 38 years old. It is concerning, but I just feel like stylistically, man, Wonderboy can keep Geoff Neal on the outside. He's going to be there to be picked apart. On the other side of the coin, Geoff Neal's going to have to get inside. He's going to have to land those hands of steel. He could do it, absolutely. I think Geoff Neal could win this fight if he can get inside. But for me, guys, the infection that Geoff Neal was dealing with only back in, August, only a few months ago, really, where, he acts like he was fighting for his life. And to me, it's honestly crazy to have a guy that's body's almost shutting down, a guy that it's touch and go. If this guy potentially might even survive, now he's coming back to fight a guy like Wonderboy. That's a huge red flag for me, a huge question mark. And honestly, I think I would probably take Wonderboy even if that wasn't part of my decision making, but it totally is. I need to see Geoff Neal come back and look great before I feel like I can back him, and I just can't do it in a spot against a guy as talented still as I feel like Wonderboy is. So that's it, folks. We've done it. UFC Vegas 17, the last card of 2020. Before we get out of here, before you guys start jumping off, I want to say one thing, man. Thank you to Guru, Lock of the Night, and Cody Saftic for the work they put in, the way they show up, the attitude they bring, and the phenomenal content they make. Thank you guys for being on this show. I appreciate it immensely, just as much as I appreciate the viewers and the people in the chat. Everybody, odds.com, OddsHQ, the whole gang. Thank you guys so much. Cannot wait to break into 2021. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Let's kick it off with a phenomenal card, boys, to kick off the holidays. Guru, tell them where you're at.
Yeah, man. Likewise, man. I really like working with you guys doing this show. So hopefully we can, I think we're going to bring it into 2021. I hope, I'm pretty sure. And we're going to, continue to grow, do the thing. And man, shout out to the chat today. A lot of that shit was funny, but man, yeah, dude, really like coming on here. Wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everything like that. And, hopefully we can, make some money on this card and make some money, going forward. So that's the name of the game. And thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you got some entertainment this year out of it.
Lock of the Night, sound off.
Yeah, man, it's been a great year. I've only been with the gang since October, but it feels like I've been around you guys forever. It's very comfortable in this seat. I'm finally comfortable in it. Heck, I'm wearing a freaking elf suit for you guys. I'm quite comfortable in the seat. So shout out to all the viewers that come out every Friday night, even on Thursdays for the stream that me and Cody do. You guys are awesome for continuously showing support on these evenings when you probably want to be with your significant other and they're probably tripping at you from the other room, but it's all good because we still bring the love and joy to your lives. But Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year to everybody. Again, you guys can find me at MMA LOTN on Twitter, MMA LOTN on YouTube. And yeah, I can't wait to get this card over with and start looking forward to 2021 because we got a huge slate of cards coming up nice and early for us next year. 3 fights in 1 week. I can't wait to get into that one with you guys. But once again, Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas to everybody, and appreciate you guys joining us as always.
Cody Saftic, tell the people.
Yeah, on one hand, I'm sad. Don't get to chat with the gang for a couple of weeks, but you know what? We'll look at it as a little vacation. We'll come back in 2021, recharge the batteries, and hopefully get back to right where we started. So just want to thank everybody for joining the chat again tonight. It looked like it was super lively. The comments definitely got me cracked up, I'm sure, as most of the people. But at the same time, it's just really good to see that there's a community. It's fun. It's not toxic. And I really feel like Odds have done a really great job of bringing together a good crew. I'm not saying that we're the best in the game and we're better than everybody else. I just mean there's a lot of good people and it's all about flow and mesh. And they've done a really good job of taking some of the best people, putting them together. And it seems like there's a good vibe, a good flow. So looking forward to continuing this show, continuing the streak going into the new year. And once again, thanks for everybody for taking the time tonight.
Absolutely. That's it, folks. What is there left to say? Best of luck. Cash those tickets. We'll catch you in 2021. We're out.